All right. What up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Thinker St. James. This is a last week's fights extra because you know that my man, my co-host, the Ohio player, and a man who would never lose in a fist fight with a French dude would not let the stream down this week. He had to come in and get his opinions known on the show. It's Chase Parton, everybody. Welcome back, Chase.
God damn, I'm ready to fucking go, locked and loaded, because this card, man, I had such a good time watching this. And brother, the fucking internet, I'm telling you, Spectrum's got another thing coming, and I'm wrong if I do something about it. That's the crazy part.
Right.
So I'm watching the card. Internet is obviously terrible. I'm watching in that potato fucking frames, and the stream's cutting out. So I just give up. I gave up early. I actually was very content with saying I'm not just going to keep trying to just play through this. So I gave up early, started enjoying the fights. Internet was very, very sketchy watching the fights even, but we got it done, and this was such a good card. What do you think?
I thought that it was okay. I didn't think that it was the greatest of the great. I thought that it was a roller coaster of a card with some good performances and a couple of decent fights, for sure. There were a couple of pretty good ones on here, and then a couple of really like standout performances that made it pretty well banger-ish at those moments. But there were a couple of duds. But either way, I mean, overall, you know me, I'm an easy man to please if two people are punching each other in the face. So
yeah, I don't know what it was about this. I think, like I said, I think I was just not taking it for granted. I was at least able to watch the fights. I couldn't talk with the people in the Discord, couldn't talk with the homies because they couldn't hear me. I couldn't hear them. So it is what it is. We were hanging out though still.
And we can hear you now. So that is what we are going to do. We're going to go over UFC Fight Night, Moicano versus St. Denis just a little bit. We're going to go over week 7, not week 8 that just happened on the Contender Series. That'll be for next Monday. We're going to go back to our regular schedule as usual on our next Monday stream. So show like normal. But for today, we'll go over a little bit of week 7. We'll do a little bit of a preview of 307, which is coming up this weekend. And anything else that's going on in the sport. It's kind of a bit of a free-for-all, so if you are in the chat, we'll be responding to you guys in real time if something comes up that needs our attention. So, Chase, you lead the way a little bit here. I still have my notes and everything from last week. Where would you like to start on this card?
We can start right at the top. I thought this right at the bottom. Right at the bottom. Gotcha. Excuse me.
Yes.
This fight here was such a good one to start off with because
Agreed, yes.
I was able to watch the fight. This is before the stream was actually cutting off, right? I don't have any reaction from this, but watching this fight, I'm like, wow. I'm eating my words in this moment, talking about Chris Duncan and him losing, and he comes out here and puts bro to sleep.
Sleep.
No, you have no idea how great the reaction would have been had I had it, because I'm sitting there. He goes for the first gilly. I'm like, psh, nothing, no way. He doesn't even. Who gets gillies in the UFC anymore? Dustin Poirier, come on now. You want to talk about gillies? And then he goes for the second one. I'm like, He's done with. He's just panicking now. He has no idea what he's doing. So they're on the ground. I'm watching. I'm like, look, nothing's happening. My guy's giving the thumbs up. He's cool. Chris Duncan lets go. I'm like, why is he not moving? I like looked away. I'm like, all right, cool. He's in top full mount, full control, whatever the fuck you want to say, top guard. He's asleep, just getting punched in the face. I'm like, what is happening? No way. And Chris Duncan's yelling at the ref. What a fight to start off the card, because this made me so happy. I got to ignore the internet for how good a performance this was. Chris Duncan, you are on the list higher than my boy Christian Leroy Duncan right now, and there's only 2 spots there, so you're doing good. That's all.
Yeah,
That's that one's that.
It's ironic that he is from Scotland, because it's a bit of a Highlander situation there. There can be only one dope Chris Duncan at the moment, and he's it right now. So good for the Scotsman Chris Duncan over here. What I said on Monday about it is that the reason that he was able to secure the second one, and why I was so impressed by this, aside from the fact that he got it and it was such a devastating blackout of a submission, was that it was the small motion that he did to actually secure it. Because basically Oki was going for a trip at the time, had his one leg trying to sweep the other, of Duncan's, and he sort of just turns his body very slightly, sort of swings his body into the front of Oki, and then the neck was there. It was just like if you go back and watch the sequence, it was just a nice fluid motion in quick time, and it worked like a charm. And what you were saying too about Oki having his head almost out, that was towards the end of it, or when he ended up finally letting up on it, it was towards the end, and it looked like he was about to slip it. No, it was just because motherfucker was I think that was rigor mortis setting in. He was stiffening up because he was donezo.
Yep, 100%.
Oh yeah, so really nice performance for Chris Duncan for sure.
100%. Yeah, what to start the card too, especially as an underdog. I'm pretty sure, right? Chris Duncan was the dog.
Yes,
that was
fairly certain
great.
That is the case.
Great fucking win to start off the card. Going into the next fight, though, I don't know if I said it on the show. I know I said in predictions, that sequence that Nora Cornell pulled off, the knees, the kicks that got her last knockout or TKO. That's a once in a career type of thing. That's just a highlight reel type move. That's not what she's gonna do every time. I knew that was gonna happen. This one was a cruise of a matchup, in my opinion. I really wasn't. This is the one where I really wasn't paying attention because I'm trying to fix the stream stuff. But I knew I'm not missing anything here. Nobody's gonna get knocked out. It's just going to decision. I have 15 minutes to figure something else out, for the stream. But good win for Jacqueline Cavalcante. Shout out Portugal. She's still. I mean, she keeps getting wins. When is she gonna not? That's really my question, because we're gonna see some ranked opponents here soon, right?
Yeah, I mean that was the kind of the overall thing that I had said on Monday as well, is that, I mean, basically that Nora looked slow and she was on the back foot the entire time. So a lot of this kind of comes from her side of the equation. I thought Cavalcante was composed for sure, and she picked some nice shots. This split decision, somehow, that's a little bit strange, but split decision went in the right direction for Cavalcante, deserved win and all that, but it wasn't exactly super inspiring. And you're making a good point that, I mean, as you said, this is now, I think, the second split decision win that she's gotten, and back to back. It's like you're right. She is going to be getting some higher level competition, whether it's ranked or not. I mean, either way, she's moving up with these wins. I would think that there might be a bit of a roadblock in the talent department coming at some point for her with the way that she fights. I mean, it's just it's composed and appropriate for the opponent, I would say, like based on her now 2 performances in quick time as well. I mean, she fought it only a month earlier against Josani Nunez. So she is adaptable to what she's having. And that, I think, is also a note for Cornell on the other side of the equation, is that if she doesn't have the fight that she wants, she sort of implodes a little bit, is what it looked like to me from her body language. But as far as Cavalcante goes, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when she has a better, more well-rounded opponent in front of her who's not going to let her have her way, and pushes the pressure a little bit more, keeps her on the back foot would be nice, because she's able to sort of adapt well, so that's a plus. But I don't know what it's going to be like going forward thereafter. We'll see.
I think this should be, like you said, a split decision before this one. It's got to be a wake up call. You got to start winning these fights very, decisively, because this one really shouldn't have been close in the judging, but it was. And, a robbery, like we'll talk about later. Um, like this, like you gotta win better than this. I know you won, but like you can't come in here and get these split decisions, even if it wasn't close to us. The judging almost robbed you here, or
Right.
whatever you want to say. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're exactly right. I mean, wherever you're fighting, it can always be different. And in this case, this would have been a good example of you're fighting in France. You've got, some factors there. What if the crowd in France, I didn't even mention that on Monday. The crowd in France was fucking insanely loud. I mean, they were really, really into it. We saw what happened to Valentina Shevchenko in the last noche before the Sphere. Whether or not you believe that was the reason that she ended up with the decision that she got in that fight, that you can draw your own conclusions there. But the point is that there's a lot of factors that go into how the judges judge these fights, and if you are constantly going to the judges, you are constantly at the mercy of whatever is coming back at you that way.
yeah, 100%. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to note, unless again, just one that I knew I could kind of, not a piss break fight, but pay attention to other things and get shit figured out.
Yeah, for sure.
Type.
Yeah, right. On this continued journey of poor internet that you were going through. Understood.
Yeah, and then so going into this next one, Perez and Alta Moreno. This fight was kind of killer. This was like really fucking good on the
Yeah, this
prelim.
was a good one.
This is, if you've seen the meme, I know I talked about it before, the meme where it's like the average flyweight bout and it's the fucking anime fight, and it's like the average heavyweight fight and it's like some two fucking slobs in a corner. Like this fight right here, the stats do not tell you like the whole story, because I'm pretty sure they knocked each other down like 3-4 times. Like I know Alta Moreno got knocked down 3 times in my opinion, and then he knocked Perez down in the second round, I think. But these dudes were really trading, and like the striking numbers seem really low for how high paced I feel like this fight was, especially when you look at it. They were not on the ground at all. Like there was no takedown attempts but one. There was barely any control time. So the striking numbers being low is interesting, but this fight was kind of a banger and unanimous decision.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
Barres there. Yeah, absolutely. My note here, and it was serendipitous and advantageous that this fight came directly after the Cornell Cavalcante fight, was that um, Altamirano was on the back foot a lot of this fight himself, but he kicked nicely enough that he kept it competitive off the back foot. Barres was keeping a nice amount of pressure. I was liking the way that he was fighting. I was glad that he ended up getting the job done in the end. But if you're going to be off the back foot, you got to be a little bit you have to be one step ahead, even in that defensive kind of motion, because anytime that you're fighting off the back foot, you're inherently at a slight disadvantage. There are some fighters that can do it a little bit better than others. I was talking about Natalia Silva, who was just fighting Jessica Andrade. I thought that that's another great example of someone who does it really well, because she was on the back foot a lot of that fight, ended up winning that fight. Just a general note for these kinds of situations, when you have a fighter on the back foot, you have to adjust a little bit if you're going to be that defensive. And I think Altamirano did that pretty well, but Barres was turning up the heat nicely. So, 29-28 unanimous decision for Barres. Decent fight overall for sure.
Yeah, because I think Perez came out great in the first round. Got some knockdowns. I think he got more than one, in my opinion. But second round, Alta Moreno came back, and I think when he got a big strike, they obviously didn't count it as a knockdown. It was close, if anything. I think at that point I was like, oh, maybe Alta Moreno can have a chance to take this and steal these last 2 rounds. But I remember thinking the third round, like he threw it away. Like he didn't perform well enough to, get there. And whether he, that's not to say he was performing bad, but like he just didn't perform well enough, like sometimes that's just the case.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a credit to Barres doing his thing for sure. I mean, like very, I would say a pretty technically solid fighter overall, and a fighter who is now changing my perception a little bit of Spain between him and Joel Alvarez. I mean, like, I'm trust me, I've never been a hater of Spain or anything. I'm just saying I look at it as where the sport is most developed in the world. You have kind of a tier list of these countries that the sport is taken hold, and you have like the world class training facilities that get these fighters to where they need to be to compete at the highest levels. In previous times, I wouldn't have necessarily put Spain in that camp, but between him and Alvarez and some of these other guys that we're seeing, obviously Ilya, you can put in that camp to an extent as well. You're starting to see some really high quality Spanish fighters now, and it's really nice to see. The striking is always very crisp from the Spaniards.
100%. And I think we can go back to this one more time as my last note is, gosh, these Mexican fighters, man, you can knock them down as many times as you want. They're just going to keep coming.
The Mexican chin is the stuff of legends. That's why they got an entire card in the Sphere.
100%.
Well deserved. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. All right. Where next?
Oh, actually,
well, I think we have to. Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to this fight. Trust me. I think great point you make about Mexico and the Sphere, and a whole card dedicated to their chins. The early stoppages that we see in this one, I will talk about, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Noche, we didn't get to see that because it's universal. The Mexicans, they're gonna fight to the end. I guess they knew, like the French guys, we gotta figure something else out for them. Maybe it wasn't the French guys necessarily, but we'll talk about one.
Yeah. All right. Well, fair enough. Okay. Well, moving on to Eileen Perez and Daria Zlesniakova, the fight that I was saddest not to have you on the stream for yesterday. Why don't you take it away, sir? What were your thoughts overall on this thing?
This fight went exactly how I thought it would. I don't remember. I think in predictions video, I 100% said I don't think she's gonna get a sub. I think I said that, and I'm okay to eat my words on that. I knew she was gonna win. She did exactly what she needed to do. Get that fucking Shevchenko ripoff, get her to the mat, lay on top of her, get the thighs. You saw that the cameramen know how to work an Eileen fight. I'm just telling you this right now. Dana White, he knows how to produce. Talk about Vince McMahon all you want. Dana White knows how to produce. So Eileen laid on top of her, got the thighs on top, choked her out, gurgling. And I want to make this point too. I know I said it on your stream. She was able to finish a choke from a position that the current champ, was not able to against Buenasoba. And I know that speaks more to Zlesniakova. But Eileen Perez, great fucking win. I know I sent you a video, and we're going to talk about that right now.
Sure.
But don't play it. Don't play it.
I will not play it yet. Yeah.
Context.
Mm-hmm.
I remember saying in her last matchup against Jocelyn Edwards, right? That's who Eileen Perez fought last.
If not last, then recently. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the fight, they had their whole beef in the PI in the hotels or whatever before. And then after the fight, I swore to you, Eileen was going up to kiss her. And I thought I was a little crazy. But then this fight, I thought I was crazy too to say this, because she does the whole twerking thing that we'll talk about here in a second. But she does want to kiss her opponents after. And I have proof right here. I found it.
Let's roll it.
Maybe not on the lips, but it's still a smooch. And one of these days we're gonna get lip on lip action with somebody. Maybe there was a little corner lip. But all I'm saying is I pointed this out one fight ago. Eileen, she's a kisser. She's a kisser, man. That's really all that one is. And this is the thing that we should be talking about. The journalists don't want to talk about the love that she spread. They want to show the butt shakes after she gets a win. And they did make a point that Daria was talking some shit before the fight, which talking shit, whatever, language barrier, maybe not. And Eileen did her butt shakes. And it's so bad when she does it. But when Patty does it against the dude that twerks, then it is such a big deal. Or it's like no big deal or whatever, But Eileen, now we want to crucify her. But all I'm saying is I just showed you the clip. She's spreading love and positivity after the whole fact. They don't want to show that part of her.
All right, so a good amount to unpack. Let's take it back a little bit of a step. I mean, if there's anybody out in the chat who wants to chime in on that point, I would say that there's a potential for Chase Parton to be accused of being a bit of a glazer here, a little bit of a booster. That might be a chat comment. It's not coming from your boy Thinker St. James, but that there's potential for that. Now, so talking about the fight itself, just very briefly, I mean, all of your points were correct, but I had said on Monday that she's thick in more ways than one. She uses her weight very effectively. That is one of her greatest strengths. The takedown was really nice and almost effortless when she was able to finally get her arms around her. She fought one takedown early, but then gets she got taken down. It's the second time around, and so I mean, like, there was a time where Daria was able to fight it off. She ends up securing it the second time. Once she was able to wrap her up effectively, she just really throws her all into these takedowns and utilizing the shifting of the body weight very effectively. So nice performance there. She did miss weight by 0.5 pounds, so we know that that's not something that I take kindly to. Although what I had said as well is that those are kind of the worst misses, because not only do you still miss weight, you still forfeit a percentage of your purse, but if it's by that small an amount, that it was a bad cut. That there were probably extenuating circumstances. Obviously, she didn't want to miss by half a pound. She was trying her hardest. You could see her in the video beforehand shaking on the scale. I mean, it was a bad cut, obviously. So it's really the worst of both worlds there. You're losing part of your purse and you still didn't make the weight, so you still depleted yourself, all of that. So I give her credit for, even if she did miss weight, that she made the attempt up until the very end, and then still ended up getting the nice win. And I didn't mention this on Monday, but I thought it was pretty funny because I just saw this recently that Tracy Cortez was flapping her jaws at her a little bit about, because I guess Eileen had talked some shit about her cutting her hair, and Eileen came back and was like, at least I didn't cut my hair and lose, which I was like, touche. But all right. So all of that being said, now we talked about the twerking on Monday, and my thing with the twerking, look, it's her brand. We all know that she does the OnlyFans thing. I'm not mad at that. That has nothing to do with fighting. So I really don't rate it one way or another. It's, kind of a personal opinion, how you feel about that part of it. That I don't factor in. But what I do factor in is it's getting to be just a little bit much, because she does. I mean, bro, after that fight, regardless of the fact that it was at one point in her opponent's face, aside from that, it's becoming like, I'm half expecting her to start doing choreographed numbers with her fucking coaches, like Michelle Pereira style, like it's getting to be just a little bit much. And then also you can factor in the fact that she did it in her face. I guess that there was some trash talk. The only thing that I had heard was Lesniakova said that she was going to put an end to the dirty dancing, which just seemed kind of tongue-in-cheekish to me. I don't know if she really meant anything by it, but so I don't know if it was really warranted in this case. But either way, I wasn't super mad at that part of it. And the point about Jordan Levitt, and Patty Pimblett was also brought up as well. That was a teabagging situation, which is, to me, that's just fucking hilarious. I don't really, there's really no two ways to slice that one. But I mean, that's just a lot of broad thoughts about the subject. I don't know I think it's a little bit of a nothing burger, but either way, it is something that happened. And, I don't know. People have their opinions about it. And you're saying that she's a spreader of love and positivity. I'll let you have it.
Listen, come on. If what she does on the internet with her business ain't love and positivity, I don't know what is in this world. That's all I got to say.
Love comes in various shapes and sizes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I actually will say she's taking more of a form now. Like, she's not just the twerker, right? She's the OnlyFans twerker. She's the pot smoking OnlyFans twerker.
Saw that
she's
too, yeah.
She's the letting Marab slap her ass twerker. Like, she's becoming her own form of, like, meme. And I give her props. Like, she's ready to go. Appreciate you over here on the chat. If you actually want to hear an Eileen Perez rant, we can go over it one more time. I have no problem.
Yeah, no.
Actually, TJF, we're going to show you a clip real quick from Eileen.
All right, we got to run it back for TJF. Shout out to TJF in the chat.
They want to talk about twerking.
All right.
They want to talk about the twerking, but they never want to show this side of Eileen. The journalism is ridiculous. Look at this right here. I pulled this up for you guys. Look at the love and positivity. The love and positivity after she wins. Yeah, she shakes her butt. She may shake her butt. What big whoop. That's how she shows, that's affection. And look at this right here. A little corner lip. Perfect. Right on the right there. Big smooch. Journalism will show that side of her though. It's okay.
Yeah, I do like this framing though that you're putting it on, like you're putting it on the media. It's a negative. It's a smear campaign. You're right. It's an Eileen Perez smear campaign, all propagated by a media that is just preying on her downfall. You're correct.
You know what? Actually, let's pull it up one more time. I'm gonna send you one because we're gonna translate it now that we have time. We're gonna translate what they said about Eileen in France. We're going to translate it. Hold on.
For sure. You go ahead and get that going. I am not going to highlight that on screen, but that was TJF. That's pretty goddamn funny.
Maybe it's too far away, but either way.
No, I mean, if you do that on another note. We got time. Okay. All right. We'll put a pin in that one. Okay, fair enough. But either which way, yeah, so I mean, well, I guess that is kind of a good point to bring up at this juncture, though. We had talked about this in the Discord just a little bit today. Shout out to all of the MMA Hive members, by the way. Discord is lit as fuck. But we had talked about how I guess there might have been some negative repercussions for Perez due to the twerking in her opponent's face. I mean, I couldn't tell if that was a legitimate thing or if she was posting that sort of tongue in cheek or what the actual truth of that situation was. Because of course we'll talk about Brian Battle in a little bit and what he did. So it's like, I mean, if they're going to be levying penalties for things after Paris, I would think that there's a couple to go around. Even Moicano could probably get a little bit of a backlash based on some of the shit he was saying. Cause I mean, Moicano,
Macron.
I mean, dude, like it was like that. Those are the most funny ones. I didn't say this, but this actually, it was hilarious to me. His post fight reminded me, you're probably too young to remember this, but fucking after Hurricane Katrina, there was a clip of a telethon that was done with, it was the actor Mike Myers, who plays Austin Powers, and Kanye West before Kanye was Kanye. And Kanye basically, like Mike Myers was trying to conduct the telethon in a straightforward fashion, very serious, very, emotionally driven because of the magnitude of what was happening in New Orleans at the time. And Kanye West just looks dead in the camera and says, George Bush does not care about black people. It reminds me a lot of that because like anything that Bisbing was trying to say, fucking Moicano was he was on his own fucking plane of existence.
Yeah, he just says whatever comes to his head, man. I was sitting here, I'm listening to what he said, and like I think I was in the Discord typing, and I was like, so he says, "Fuck France, but France people, you don't suck." All right, got it.
Oh, bro, yeah. The way that I read it out, like I have it in bullet points in the notes, and it's just like trying to follow it like in the notes is crazy, but then to like hear it out loud is just like it's talk shit about the French people, but after going to the Louvre, he went to an art museum and said, you know what, the French aren't that bad. I was like, okay, so that's number one. Number two, the government sucks. Number three, the French Revolution could not erase Jesus. Thought that was pretty funny. He said religion, but you know what kind he's talking about. And then, that apparently democracy itself is a fallacy and everyone needs to read Democracy, the God That Failed. And then somewhere in all of that, he called out Patty Pimblett. So that's key
phrase. Democracy is not the real government. That was a great one.
There you go. And as I had said, I have not read Democracy, the God That Failed. So perhaps I have to do some light reading here and get a little bit more knowledgeable on what he's talking about before I take any kind of geopolitical stance one way or another. I'm generally a pretty strong proponent of democracy, but I'll give his book a shot. It is Money Moicano we're talking about here.
100%. And with that little sidetrack there, we can go back to the
for sure. Yeah, well, that was a little bit of a tangent. We're free for all in today, so we're bouncing all over the place.
And I'm not trying to just stop the momentum because that was a good one. But there's really only one thing I can say about this next fight.
For sure. Yes, this is Taylor Lopoulos versus Vince Morales.
Taylor Lapilus is never gonna go for a finish. He's never gonna be aggressive. He's never gonna fight with the intent to punch the dude hard and like hurt him. That's literally all I've collected out of this dude. He's
Yeah,
not great.
yeah, and I'm glad that you said that because I was starting to think that maybe I was going a little crazy here. Yeah, Lapalus, he's the way that I describe him is he is plotting. He is a plotting counterer. You know, he is going to be countering. He's got decent strength, but not great counterpunch knockout strength to the point that he is getting finishes, like you said. He mixes up his attacks nicely, which is cool. You know, it's a couple of decent elbows in there, going high low. You know, that kind of stuff was nice to see. And it was a unanimous decision win. But it's just again, I don't see much greatness even in a potential form in this guy. Like I'm not inspired by him, and every fight is the chance for these fighters to prove otherwise to me. I was waiting for it with this guy because a lot of people coming into this fight were saying, "Oh, you know, I like Lapalus. I think that he's got a good shot here and there." But you know, all this stuff. Also, we had talked a little about Morales. You know, being out of the organization, coming back to the organization. How much did he improve? Yada yada. I mean, I was waiting for Lapalus to put on a show that was going to make me say, "Wow, that okay? There's your next guy from France. He's really the dude that people have been hyping him up to be." But I just don't see it. I yet again do not see the not any kind of flex of greatness.
100%. Yeah, that's unanimous decision. I mean, cool, but like, yeah, the fight was terrible.
Yeah,
Didn't enjoy it.
for sure. Yeah, same.
And then this next one, kind of no better. I mean,
Oh, this was way worse in my opinion. I mean, even for Ludovic, we're talking about Ludovic Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts. I mean, you know, great job for Klein to have an easy night at the office, just putting pressure all over the place on Roberts, who had absolutely nothing to answer any of it. I mean, we were talking about some people who are tall for nothing. I mean, Roberts, I had said it before, you know, I was not super impressed with him on The Ultimate Fighter. He comes back. I'm not super impressed with him now. That fight is a prime example of why.
Yeah, this fight, gosh, I really think it was the height. I know Ludovic is good and he won, but like I said this maybe in my recap video. It's a hard task to, win against somebody who's taller than you, right? They do have the same reach, I believe they said, or maybe it's like a 1 inch, 2 inch difference. But it's hard to win against somebody who's taller than you, let alone like finish them, like on the feet kind of deal. It's like for him to get a knockout shot the way Roosevelt is just like playing on the back foot, not engaging really. It's going to be very hard. So I applaud him for winning, but the fact that some judges gave Roosevelt a round.
Yeah,
Anyway, I mean,
yeah, no, right, nothing, yeah, nothing doing there. Please, he definitely didn't deserve a round in any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I mean, you know, you're right that there is you know, the height difference does make it a little bit more difficult. But we've seen guys that can get
yeah,
the job done. Come on, you know, I mean, I don't think you can really rest on that as a valid excuse in the UFC. Um, but
you're
either
right.
way, you know, I mean, look, I mean, I try to be as fair as possible with these things. You know, I'm not going to say that it's an easy task. I mean, Roberts is still a skilled fighter, been around for forever at this point. You know, so I mean, he definitely you know, knows what he's doing one way or another, whether he's in a dominant position or not. But you know, at the same time, I mean, and also we're talking about a minus 1,000 on this book's odds coming into this fight. That was my big note. Is this is another fight that had a little bit of betflation going on. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
these numbers, it's ridiculous. Anytime that I put it at 800. You know, if you're anywhere in the range of a minus 800 and up, I mean, this should be an absolute cakewalk. Now, I mean, he did have control the entire time, like we were saying. There's no justification for Roberts getting any of these rounds, but either way, I mean, like if you are not finishing the fight early to justify that price tag, then there's 15 minutes that anything can happen. And that's to me not that's not something that you should be having with that with those odds on your back.
I'm curious, like with the odds how they are right now, and the sport growing is more and more, sports gambling is becoming more and more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Are the odds ever going to like, they're inflated right now? Are they ever going to recess, or are more and more people going to keep betting the heavy favorite? And then we're gonna see fucking minus 5,000 or 5,000s and shit on opening day kind of deal.
It's a good question. I would think that it's probably going to ramp up in accordance to like the actual economic times that we're in. That would be my guess. I would say. I mean, based on the fact that you're, basically, in the most down the line terms, that's minus. You're betting $1,000 to win $100. That I think it's scaling to what the actual circumstances of our era are. So I would think that, yeah, I think that they probably will continue to be inflated when there are circumstances that, at least in these odds makers' eyes, warrant these great discrepancies. However, what everybody should be very well aware of, in regardless of how big the gap may be, is that these are the opportunities if you feel one way strongly. I mean, right now we've been seeing these big favorites come through for most of the time. I mean, like, we were talking about the dude from Australia. We were talking about Bulgarian. I mean, the couple of these guys who have these crazy odds have lived up to it, at least in getting the win if you're betting the money line. So, maybe it's not necessarily the greatest time to start, throwing crazy money on these dogs, but just be aware that not every time is going to pay out with these crazy odds either way. And then also, what's the point of even betting in the first place if you're throwing down on somebody with that kind of odds to begin with?
100%. Yeah. And we're just seeing it time and time again. These dudes, they come in, and Ludovic, I'll give credit. He has a lot more of a litigious record, or whatever you want to say, rather than like somebody who's coming off the Contender Series.
Litigious, maybe.
I don't know what the fucking word is. I don't know if that's a word, but either way, he's like 23-4. Somebody off the Contender Series like Isaac Dolgarian, he's like,
oh yeah, he's more tested. Yeah, he's been right. He's been through it for sure. He's got a better pedigree.
Yeah. So that's about all I can say on that one. This next fight, I again, you got a unanimous decision, but man, these three right here, now going back to it, I don't remember them being as boring as I'm talking about now, because these three were some slouches. Like Omar Sy, I was sitting here thinking in predictions video, maybe this is going to be a fight where in the UFC we see his knockout power, or we see it. But Koreans, they also hard to finish. So here we are going to decision. He was able to wrestle with him the entire time. Actually, did I miss this fight or something? Like, what? 2 takedowns, 3 minutes of control time. I thought he was wrestling the whole time. I must have been trying to figure out the stream or something.
I mean, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean that was the case. I mean, like, I think that he might have had more control than they're giving him credit for. And then also there were some scramble situations in there. But yeah, we're talking about Umar Sy versus Dawoon Jung right now. And yeah, I mean, really, I didn't have many notes about it, to be perfectly honest. It was I thought they both were just super slow.
Yeah.
Or at least a little slow. I mean, they were like well paced, like they were well suited to each other because they both seemed one step behind, which is not great, but still,
Yeah.
kind of, it was a low level competitive fight because of both of them looking a little sluggish, and C ended up outpacing in the end just a little bit, enough to get the UD.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. My other thing is like Omar Sy, his striking is a issue. It's really slow. He's not over here ripping combos. He's not dropping bombs. Like there was no moment where you were like, oh. Like I get he's a light heavyweight, so he's gonna be slower. But like we've seen some light heavyweights, like even Volkan Oezdemir, like the dude who knocked Johnny Walker. That dude's kind of fucking. He's got bombs he can drop. Like he can just walk up and knock. So it makes me wonder, or makes me worried. Like Omar, if you get some higher ranked people, it's like, dog, you're gonna get starched on the feet. Hopefully you're wrestling. Maybe you can interact. You engage that early. But if you get somebody who can stuff a takedown and they keep it on the feet, then what?
Well, and see, that's the interesting thing based on the research, and I brought up C's full record here to illustrate this point. Is that it's you're not wrong in the criticisms of the striking. However, he does have a number of knockout wins.
Yeah,
so
that's what I
is,
was saying. I've seen. Yeah. I know he's got those, and that's what I was hoping in the UFC I would get to see this fight. But looking at the striking, it's like I'm wondering how he even knocked those dudes out, because there ain't nothing impressive on the feet there.
Yeah.
Maybe he was taking it off because, again, like you said, the opponent, the skill gap, that like they were on the feet were not very good at all. So maybe he was just taking his time and just cruising, but it didn't look good.
Yeah. And coming into this fight, I had made a point to say, with what I had seen of him in the past, and like the way that he handled Tokos so easily, even though Tokos was fighting like a bit of a moron, I was saying that this guy was one to possibly watch out for from France. Um, I would maybe slightly amend that based on the talent level that he's competing against, and it really does not signal um, a great anything great when that performance happened against Dawoon Jung, who has had his own ups and downs in the organization. I mean, this should have been. We were talking about it like on the Sunday stream, saying that this could be a big coming out party. This could be fireworks for this guy to really put him on the map. And it just was not that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing to say that he can't continue to rack up wins. I would just be a little bit cautious about thinking that there's like some future greatness ahead of him based on that performance. But anything can change in the next fight.
Yeah, and they don't show it, but he was also a pretty big favorite. So the fact that he didn't get a finish, I think sometimes we kind of know with some of the regions that these people come from, it's really hard to finish them. But I'm pretty sure he was the favorite, and like a submission or whatever was pretty heavily favored.
Yeah.
So that's really about it. Moving on to the next one. Got the Cutaloba and Urslan. This fight here, it was pretty fun. It was really fun. I got to sit back and actually relax. I was like, I know I talk shit about Cutaloba. I'm ready to watch this fight and see what actually happens. And it was pretty funny. Moldova is like, I don't know why it's like a funny word to say, but it's just funny that he's from there also, because like who else is from Moldova except this fucking dude? Like, the Urslan dude, I don't know if you've ever seen the show My Name is Earl.
I've seen it.
Okay.
See it look like somebody from it.
Okay, so the dude, the brother.
Oh yes, yeah.
Ethan Suplee.
Suplee when he lost weight,
When
he used to
he
be very heavy.
lost weight.
Yeah,
So when he
yeah.
lost all the weight, he looks just like this dude.
There you go. Fair enough.
But he really sucks too. It's the fact that he got outclassed. Like, not just like,
oh, come on.
I was rooting for him. I think the fight, it was questionable, but he got dropped on his face. Like, he like face planted in the first round and like got up and like laughed it off. And I'm thinking like, this guy here, like, oh, you laughing off face planting, brother. Like, you got like against this guy.
Right. I mean, so what I had said about this fight coming into it is that it could either be a fireworks display for the new guy to show that he's next up in the division, in the organization, coming in, making his debut, really putting himself on the map, or this could be one of the ones where the chiseled veteran shows that there are levels to the game, and it was certainly the latter of those two. Cutelaba he's just a fucking wild man, dude. I mean, like, the stuff, he's awkward as fuck, he's unorthodox as fuck, he's throwing ridiculous weird shit. I mean, I said on Monday, one of the things that I was like, how the fuck did you even throw that, was like he threw a jumping spinning kick at one point. Like, he went up off of 1 foot and did a spin. It was almost like a weird pirouette into a push kick. I mean, like, it was just very strange. He's just a weird guy. Like, to be perfectly honest, when he's in the cage, he's a wild man, but it's a strange wild. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain guys who it's like, we'll talk about it on Monday, but like, what is it? Martinez, I think the kid who was fighting on Contender Series. Yeah, he has this super, super intense look when he fights. Like, that's a version of a wild man that you're somewhat.
It was those two grapplers, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that was the other fight. That was the Alberto
and Montez.
Yeah, I believe that's the one you're talking about there. But this was Martinez versus Xavier Franklin, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, regardless, just just as an example of a guy who's got that like super intense, wild man kind of look about him. He had that, but like Cutelaba is just a different beast in that regard. He's wild, but like just almost like a screw loose kind of wild. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what is going on with this guy?
Yeah, and I'll make the point too that Urslan was limping after it. Like his knee looked really, really
For sure.
jacked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that was part of it. It was a split decision. Maybe if he had a fully healthy knee, maybe if he didn't get injured, again, that's part of it. But maybe he might have slipped away with this one. I didn't feel bad with this pick because like he didn't get like outclassed. It was a fun fight. Like at any moment, I was thinking maybe somebody could drop or just get wobbled. And
Yeah.
I think at one point they did maybe like wobble each other or something. But
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that they both had like staggery moments there for a minute on both sides. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, like Urslan, I thought defended well, but he just had to do too much of it in the first two rounds, and then the third round, he had his opening there because he was able to gain some control and just didn't do much with it. So levels to the game.
and that's actually another good point. I do remember him not throwing as much. And again, maybe maybe it was an early injury. Maybe he came in with it and he just didn't want to like step on it and throw kind of deal. But it is what it is. Good win for Cutelaba. It means we'll probably see him around again.
Yeah, well, and I had made that point on Monday as well. Is that I mean because of the up and down nature of his record and how unpredictable he has been, he's 18-10. That is wild
Beat
work right
Khalil
there.
Roundtree.
Well, and I mean, yeah, we can talk about that. How everybody on the planet, for some reason, is hypnotized by the that cult that Khalil is in, to think that he is going to win this fight. I don't understand it. It's very weird to me. But either way, yes, I mean Kutalaba. It's just he's Anakin. Shout out to Anakin MMA, one of the friends of the stream. He said it best. It's just Kutalaba is too unpredictable to back him. I mean, it's like either put money on the other guy or don't bet at all when it comes to Kutelaba, because you can't rely on him. And what my greater point of all of that was that I think that he might have been in danger of getting cut if he had lost this fight. I mean, because not only would he have lost, but he would have lost to a newcomer after already having lost to Felipe Lenz, who is no longer in the organization, even though he was on a 4-fight win streak. That was a little strange. But regardless, the point is that I mean, Kutelaba is on shaky ground to begin with, just based on his up and down record. So it is good that he was able to keep himself alive here.
100%.
All right, so moving on to one of the highlights of this card for sure. This is Fares Zayam versus Matt Frivola. What do you think of that knee?
That knee was crazy. Gosh, it sucks to see this one. Like we're not gonna talk too much about it because there's really not much to say. The fight, it was fine through 3 rounds. Like it was maybe close or maybe wasn't. I don't know. It was just a fun fight. I can't really tell you too much was happening. I just know that it was entertaining up until the point where like the life was taken from me. I felt like I died when Matt died. Like that was such a brutal knockout. Like the way that his body landed. And then this is the first of, I think, a 3-step process that we're going to talk about the officiating. And I know it's case by case, so I'm not going to make too much of a deal about it. I just want to make, for context, Matt Frivola was lying on his back, hands down, legs stiff, like dead. He gets 3 shots. He gets 3 shots to the face before the ref steps in.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, just remember that for context.
For sure. Yeah.
And then so I'll let you go on because yes, Matt Frivola is dead. That's all I gotta say. Like,
yeah, we saw an American death in France that evening, folks. I mean, it was gone till November for sure for Matt Frivola. What I had said on Monday, and I think is the biggest point that I had about the knee. Two points. One is that Fares, obviously a long, lanky fighter, long limbs, kind of skinnier legs. But the distance that he had to get that knee up was impressive. Not only that, but the force that he still was able to generate with the amount of distance that leg had to come up with. I mean, because it was like it had to arc, it was like if this is his kneecap here, it had to come around and up. And so that, I mean, I was like, he was able to pull that off. That was very, very impressive in and of itself that he got it up there with that force. But the other thing, and I think the most important point of that sequence, was the grabbing of the head and the force into the knee. I thought that was such a pro move right there. That was a high fight IQ move to know that if he didn't have the angle that he wanted, because I mean, he would have connected with the knee one way or another, but it could have grazed the side of the face. It might not have had as much of an impact, but he grabbed the side of the head and tilted it to the side so that the impact was directly on the button. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what was the last thing I wanted to say. Something maybe yeah, it's just a really good performance, a good fight. Coming into the main card, like this is a great fight to start off with. Yeah, that knee was just what I want to say. Did you see the video of Matt Favola's coaches like at the moment that it happened?
No,
They
was there
released
some?
they released a corner cam of it. And like one of the coaches like, watch out for the knee, and then the other one says, all right, you're gonna turn into him, and like, bro, he just ate, like he did exactly what the coaches said, and the coaches are just like, fuck, like
Yeah,
we fucked him up. Like, man, I felt the pain. But yeah, this one was crazy. Going into the next one though, we can.
Yeah, and just a nice technical fight overall for ZM in general. I think that he might be a little bit of a better fighter than I was giving him credit for going into that fight. So that's a good example of a fighter changing my mind, and it's certainly possible with every fight. So good work for Ez.
Okay.
Moving on to Charrier versus Miranda here.
This is step 2 in my rant about the officiating. I don't know if it's a rant, but it's just for me to point out the obvious, really.
Okay.
So last fight, Matt Favola gets 3 unanswered strikes, okay, after he's completely lying dead. This fight here, Morgan Charrier comes in as a big favorite. Gabriel Miranda comes in as an underdog. And I was preaching that he's going to get a submission. That's all he does. And boy, was he looking for it in that first round. He was trying to get that sub. He was trying to win me money. He was trying to get everybody fed. Yep. So I appreciate him. Coming into the second round, 27 seconds is absolutely ridiculous. And this was some French fucking biased shit because the ref was, I'm telling you, I'm tired of seeing some of these refs dive for their lives. Like bullets are like flying in the octagon, apparently. When Gabriel Miranda hits the octagon or hits the ground, whatever you want to say, hits the mat, bro's hands are up. He's in his guard and he's contesting, why are you stopping the fight? And I'm tired of seeing it. When Matt Favola, you look at the exact same scenario. He gets 3 unanswered strikes when the Frenchman knocks him cold unconscious. When the Brazilian gets dropped, he don't get no unanswered strikes. Hey, fight's over. He's good. He's good. Get him out. Get him out. Like, I'm tired of this shit, man. And then he gets on the mic. He gets on the mic and, you know, he talks and he's, it's fucking translated that I told myself I was going to come in and beat his ass or beat the shit out of him. And that's what I did. Like, brother, you were not beating him up. Like that fight, it was making me mad. You can talk about cope all you want. Gabriel Miranda was going to pull that sub off. As soon as that, look, as soon as that fight hit the mat, if the ref wasn't there being on some stupid shit, Miranda was going to get that sub because Morgan was going to be overzealous for that finish. That's all I'm saying. And then you go into the next fight just to finish my trilogy of rants.
Sure. We'll come back to that for after this, but go ahead.
Kevin Jousset was not fighting back. He was getting his feet, but I will contest that before, but other people. You can't finish the fight on the feet sometimes. Like, bro, he was done. He obviously was, and he gave up. But like, I'm tired of seeing motherfuckers on the feet getting like technically finished because another rant, actually, to even go back into it deeper, Money Moicano, the 2 finishes that this dude has had are against him from Fiziev and Aldo. They were early as fuck, bro. Oh my God. It's actually ridiculous to see. Like, I'm tired of seeing these early ass stoppages. I'm just tired of it. So going back to Morgan Charrier, Gabriel Miranda, you go, and then I'll continue with my other. And shout out fucking Crazy Larry, man. You're the fucking man.
Absolutely. Yes. That is first and foremost. Shout out to Larry. That's the homie for real. But yeah, so okay, just to backtrack. So now, I mean, I'm following along with all of what you're saying here about these early stoppages. I didn't necessarily pick up on it in this fight, so I'd have to go back and rewatch and kind of get a full feeling on that one way or another. only thing that I had to say was that I thought that Miranda was pulling guard at some inopportune times. I think that he, he, like you were saying, he was hunting a little bit too greedily for the submission win, and that ended up costing him. In the long run. I mean, it didn't really cost him in the moment, but he obviously it was the game plan, and he left himself open for the shot that would eventually, to put him down and get him out, but. That being said, I mean, I didn't really have too many other notes about this fight, so I would have to kind of go back and rewatch to get a full assessment of the stoppage. But I mean, as far as the stoppage in the Giuseppe versus Battle fight, I mean, you're so like what's the alternative though for you? Is that it's just they have to
Hit
drop
the fucking mat, brother.
they have to drop. Okay,
Come on, like what the fuck? Like Kevin Giuseppe, Brian Battle, shout out to you for getting this finish because you were putting a beating on him. But like, bro, if you can't take no more, drop to your knees and be done. Like, fuck. Like, I'm tired of seeing it because like I don't know, bro. I don't know. Kevin Giuseppe, he was obviously done. Even when the ref ended it, he had like a look of relief, like, fuck, like, thank God. Like, but drop to your knees, get it done. Get over with, brother. I don't care. I'm tired of seeing finishes on the feet. There should be a rule like you cannot finish the fight on the feet.
I mean, I don't know about all of that. That's a little extreme. That's a little bit extreme.
Unless the doctor does it. Unless the doctor does it. Fuck.
Yeah, fair. Oh yeah, no, Larry, thank you though. I appreciate the thought there. Hopefully at some point we'll get to that level. But in the meantime, you can use that Prime on the another streamer of your choice, and we appreciate the sentiment though. But yeah, so I mean, like, look, as far as the unified rules state, which if you were not on stream yesterday for Dana White's Contender Series, you did not know this, but producer Catherine, who is our producer on this very channel here when I do my watch alongs with Vitz King, was kind enough to bind and laminate the new unified rules of MMA. So we have them bitches on hand at all time when I'm over at Vitz King's house. I'm going to get a copy for over here as well. But in the unified rules, it says that turning your back is, a sign that you no longer want to fight. So, I mean, I can kind of understand what you're saying because, it can lead to some odd situations where if they're turning away and just trying to defend, that it can be perceived as, retreating and turn into an early stoppage. That is certainly something that can happen. But I do think that there are some times that it's warranted only because it's the same as what happened with Tafa and Walker, when you had the cry out situation that ended up being a submission. I was really glad that nobody was getting too heavily on the referee about that, because occasionally, and it should only be occasionally, but in certain instances, you have to stop these fighters from being too tough for their own good if they're taking a ton of unanswered shots, even on the feet. I think there are times when it is somewhat warranted, but to your point, and I think that where it needs to be established as the dividing line is that it has to be overwhelmingly apparent. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to be
bloodied,
out on,
like,
yeah, I'm
brother.
right. I mean, like it has to be beyond the pale. Like this guy can no longer, like there's no way that he's doing anything to.
We'll talk about it later.
Sure. Well, all right, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, as far as on the feet goes with stoppages, yeah, there are select instances where it makes sense, but it should be very, very sparing. It's almost like a 10-7. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's only a certain, very few select instances when a 10-7 would ever be applied to a round. Like that's kind of where I would think that the stoppages on the feet should be as well. It should be extremely minute in its usage.
The entire card, of course, the entire week, really, Elite was saying, "Oh, you got the wrong flag. It's the white one. They're going to be waving it all weekend." So
Yeah.
when this fight came up, I was proud for Elite. I was like, you know what? There you go. You got your moment. There goes Kevin Giuseppe bitching out. But I'm not going to say it. If I was getting punched by Brian Battle, I'd quit too, brother.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't get to talk about it on Monday, so I guess we got to talk about his post-fight speech there, Mr. Battle, getting a little bit angry at the French crowd, had a couple of words to say for all of the boo birds out there in the audience. What'd you think?
That was a good one. The walking around with the middle fingers, that was the best part of it. The speech was good. I think if he wouldn't have said it a second time, I think if he would have just gave it the one-liner, if you heard it, you heard it. If you didn't, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
a little bit more
but
impact if he had left it at the one.
yep. But other than that, it was good. And then the fake. It's funny. So we talked about that fake fucking post where it's like, oh, Brian Battle is fine, 250,000 is not coming back to France or whatever. When you were asking if it was a real source, Badger was like, no, it's from this account called like Spinning Dick Piss or something. I was sitting here like, wow, that's a really funny name for a meme account. I know that's just a joke. And then I go find the original thing, and it's literally from an account called like Spinning Back Piss. Like,
Yeah,
it's
right.
really,
Shout out to Spinning Back Piss. That was funny. And let me just clear my name a little bit. I was not asking if the tweet was real. I was asking if it was based in any reality. I knew
gotcha, gotcha.
I knew that that account was a parody account, but I wanted to make sure that it was not reporting on something or commenting on something that had some kernel of truth in it. So I just
100%.
got it. As a I try to be as thorough as I can be. I have to vet these sources. I see a whole lot of crazy shit. I was talking about that a little bit in one stream recently, saying how I had seen on the Contender Series stream yesterday, saying about we were talking about Khalil Roundtree and this positivity group that he's a part of that people are saying is a cult. I mean, there's a lot on both sides of that equation. We did talk about that at a different time, but I was saying that I had heard some wild stuff about him possibly being sponsored by Prada. There's no basis in reality for that I've been able to find. So my point is that I hear all kinds of crazy shit coming from all corners of the internet. You gotta at least treat it with a level of respect until you can vet it as false, because sometimes the wildest shit on the planet becomes the truth in this sport.
100%. And
So,
so
but yeah, no.
back
And
to the
one other
fight.
thing though, yeah, I did,
Oh,
and
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, and I know, but yeah, but this is back to the or the at least the post fight. I wanted to say, based on what you were saying about the leaving it at the one time with his one liner there. The thing that I thought was even funnier that I don't think is getting enough credit is that he starts it off with the really quick, "Yo, USA in this hoe."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, that was fucking funny as fuck. That one got me.
I think so. Brian Battle is obviously trying to do these promos kind of deal. He has a really good voice for it.
It's true.
Not just his speaking. Like, obviously, he's very articulate with his voice, like his words, and he knows how to get his point across. The voice, like his bass, like the way that he comes off. Touche, man. Touche.
Yeah. No, he's got a good voice. If he was spitting bars, he would sound pretty good too. I think he's got a good
Yeah.
voice in general. But yeah, no, I mean, and look, all of those things aside, I was saying on Monday, I'll say it again. I've made an entire video about Brian Battle in relation to what happened with the Ange Losa fight. I've been a fan of Battle since his season of The Ultimate Fighter that he was the winner of. Let's not forget that he is the Ultimate Fighter. So I mean, look, I'm a fan. I'm unabashed about that. I think that his style is great. I think that he's one of these guys that you put a challenge in front of him and he figures out a way to overcome that challenge, and that's what you like to see. I think it's a little bit early to talk about champ potential, but I mean, don't be surprised when you see Brian Battle in the rankings.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what's next. I was gonna say is, what do you think is next? It's
Yeah.
most likely a ranked matchup.
Oh,
And
gotta
another
be. Yeah, I would say so.
well, actually, to bring that up,
Mhm.
this was, and let me actually fact check this before, because I've been saying this and I wanted to double check, and this is wow, okay. When Kevin Jousset was walking to the octagon, they announced that this was his second UFC fight. Or
Yeah.
he had two. No, sorry, this was his third. He had two before this. And I'm sitting here
Oh,
thinking,
okay.
Brian Battle is never gonna lose to a dude with two fucking fights under his belt. Like, get out of here. As soon as I heard that, I'm like sitting here thinking, like, God, go all in on Brian Battle. Like, there is just no fucking way. There's just no fucking way. Look at that. So
Yeah.
point is, that America has Charles Oliveira now, so I'm excited.
That's your comparison?
That's the meme going around. All gold, everything. Brian Battle, he's looking like Charles Oliveira out there. Not the subs, but the look is good.
Okay, fair. Yeah, the hair definitely is reminiscent for sure. I'll give you that. But yeah, no, a great win for him. And like I said, I mean, he's just one of those guys that I think figures out a way. And the power is there too. I mean, he's a very well-rounded fighter, and he's got a decent fight IQ. So that's
He's easy to
really.
root for.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then right, and then you add in all of the other elements. That's he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He's got a little bit of an attitude. He walks the talk. I mean, like there's really not too much that I can say negative about him. And also the other thing that I will say though, in relation to all of that, is that he does it at appropriate times. I mean, like, because there are guys that go out there and just want to play the heel. I mean, you can name a couple of them off the top of your head. Guys like Colby, guys. I mean, to an extent, like Ian Gary, like just people who are like intentionally antagonistic, and that always comes off as so fucking fake to me. I'm just like, bro, go out and fucking fight. Like, stop with this bullshit. Prove it in the cage. You know what I'm saying? But Brian Battle, he's not going to be the one to give it, but he's not the one to take it, but he'll give what needs to be given if he's getting that kind of shit back to him. If they had been cheering him, that could have been an entirely different situation. Maybe he wouldn't have done any of that. But he's doing it at the right time, saying the right things. I'm a fan.
I get it. 100%.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. All right, moving on to William Gomez versus Joanderson Brito. Yeah, I know that you were screaming bloody murder about this being a highway robbery. I'd say it was closer to a petty theft, but what'd you think?
I think William Gomez, and he's just like Taylor Lapilus. William Gomez actually just doesn't engage at all. Side and counters only. And it's crazy to me that. Hold on, let me double check. Why did they fucking? Where did they say? Okay, 11 fight win streak. Is that what they said? Yeah. Oh wow, interesting. He's on an 11 fight win streak with his only loss coming to Morgan Cherie in 2016. Talking about William Gomez here.
Yeah, that's kind of wild to me, considering the way that he fights.
Exactly. Well, and we get these people again. We get these safe fighters. They'll stay on the outside and they'll point their way to victory. And Brito, again, he was on a big win streak. Oh, actually separated by a loss by Bill Alge. Lost to Diego Lopez and Shepe. Jeez, this dude's really fought a lot of good people. But yeah. It sucks that he just got robbed because I thought Joanderson Brito was doing a lot more of that fight.
Sure. I mean, I think that the issues that I brought up were that Brito overcommitted to some of the clinching, which is actually a note that I had about Brian Battle as well before he adjusted, was that, it's like sometimes these guys, like they commit to these clinch situations without any regard for what it's doing to the optics of the fight. Which is, I think kind of one thing that sort of hindered Brito early on. When he wasn't doing that, he was doing some decent work with his hands. And then, I mean, it was like once Brito stopped going for the wrestling, Gomez did just a lot of decent defensive work, staying out of striking range, and Brito just didn't let his hands go enough. That was, I think, the issue there, because I do think that he won this fight. I mean, I do think that this was not the right call here, but again, it's the same. What we were breaking down about the Cornol versus Cavalcante fight came true in this fight. So it's like you got to you have to win definitively, especially when you're in unfavorable territory. And it sucks that I have to say that, but it's just the truth of the game here. So, I mean, you got to make a statement with these performances to the point where it's undeniable. And then even still, you can get robbed if it goes to decision. So, that's, I think, what happened here.
100%. That's really all I got to say.
Sure. All right. Well, then let's move on to the co-main event here. This is Nasruddin Imavov versus Brandon Allen. I ate a ton of crow on this one, with Brandon Allen looking terrible in this fight.
This one here, when I found out that it was 3 rounds, I was so fucking grateful. I thought this was going to be a 5-round slot. I was like, oh my gosh, this fight here was not only boring. The people want to talk about how funny the pictures are from it, but the fight itself was far from funny entertaining. It was so like it's hard to even say this was boring because I want to say this is one of the worst fights that I've seen in a really long time. These dudes, I get it's like a style clash. They kind of, but whatever. And people on Twitter specifically, they're wondering like, why didn't Brendan Allen keep in the stand up? And I'm sitting here thinking, are you guys not watching how bad his stand up is? Like Brendan Allen is never going to get to the top of the division with the striking that he has. Like it's not just like what he has, it's like what he's going to have forever. Like he's going to get dog walked before he can get into these stupid fucking scrambles. He gets so gassed out by the second round, he's already on his knees like panic shooting. Like it's crazy to me. And we saw this, like we saw this with Chris Curtis, and it was a 5-round fight on short notice. Okay. And we saw Brendan Allen tired, gassed, shooting from his knees, pulling guard, crawling again. Like it's crazy that like people tricked me to think like Brendan Allen's a good underdog because he's not. And Imavov is not that great either. Nothing in this matchup taught me anything that I should like learn, like to learn more about Imavov. There's nothing that impressed me. I will say this. His striking is good. He can get inside, he can pop a quick 3-4 combo and get out. But that is against a bum striker like Brendan Allen. So I'm just saying, man, this is really crazy to me that people ever had faith in Brendan Allen. He wants to talk about an off night. I'm glad he actually even said it was like an off night, alluding to like, oh, I lost. Because if he would have just came up with some bullshit like, oh, I got robbed, it was 28-29, blah, 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 blah. I would have been nasty work by him because he's already on the verge of like, talk about why do people not like him? Because of these performances. And I told you the eye test does not pass for him.
And that's what I wanted to bring up for sure. I shouted you out on Monday, giving you all the credit for that one because you made the right call in the way that you framed it with that. The eye test you just said, he does not pass with that. And obviously this confirmed it. What I said, I'm going to just honestly, for this one, I just want to go through the notes one more time,
Yeah,
even if I
go
went
ahead.
through them on Monday, because I think that it paints the picture the way that I see it pretty well. I started off by saying, and I'll say it again here, is that I believe that it was Aljo on Twitter who said that Allen just looked off in general in this fight. Now, one thing I will add that I did not say on Monday is that Brendan Allen did come out on, I think, Instagram or some social media and said that the way that the French Commission was handling at least him, and I believe he said Moicano, prior to the fights was nasty work. I mean, that they apparently wanted to piss test him at first directly after his weight cut and then insisted on a blood draw. That's pretty wild. So, I mean, I'm not saying, look, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just putting that out into the conversation because he said it. I don't even know if that's actually been confirmed or not. I don't know if Moicano has confirmed that, but just whatever the case was, I think that Allen looked off in this fight just from the jump. He didn't look like he was in it even from the start. He looked very, again, just off is the only word I can really use to accurately describe it. He did control that first round.
That's what I was gonna say. It's
Yeah.
like you're saying he looked off from the jump, and I'm sitting here saying that first round, like he was doing good.
Well, no, see, that's the thing is that I think that that's part of it, though, is that I think that he got the takedown, but he didn't do anything with it. And I think that that's part of him just being off was that it's like, okay, I'm going to get this takedown because I need to get it because I'm not feeling right or whatever. Well, like I said, I think it looked like, I don't think that he did, but it looked like he had like a cold, you know what I mean? Like he just looked not right. And I think that all plays into it that, he goes for this takedown and then doesn't really do much because it's just not there for him, except for the control. So he did all of that. I mean, on a Mavov side of the equation, he made some really nice adjustments to counteract what he knew what he knew was going to be coming back at him based on that first round. So I give him some credit for that for sure. And you're right, he can get a couple of decent quick shots in when he's got the openings. Credit where credit is due. Second and third round, all in Mavov on the ground and the feet at the times that it went to the feet. And I mean, you're kind of going heavy on Allen striking. I mean, I think that there may be a little bit more in there than you're giving him credit for in the totality of him. Not in this fight though. This fight, it was quite obvious that the hands weren't there. And the fact that they weren't meant that Allen went back to the well so many times, and you just cannot do that. And like we were saying about the panic shooting, I mean, it looked like that super gassed out, like, desperation shooting. You know what I mean? Like that this is all that I have. This is all I'm going to be able to do. This is what I have to go for. And if you're doing that by, early in round 2, it's a bad night at the office in general. So yeah, this was the worst that I think I've seen Brendan Allen fight. And that's really just the end of the story there. The story is not so much Nasruddin Imavov, because like you were saying too, what I had said coming into this fight is that I don't think that Imavov is at the level that the number 4 in the division needs to be at to deserve that ranking. I don't think that this moved the needle in his regard either. But the story really is just about Allen not showing up and giving him the opposition that would have cut the diamond, so to speak.
State of the division, because this is the number 3 ranked guy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is on a 3 fight win streak. When 3 fights prior, he lost to the number 1 ranked guy. And then 2 fights prior to that, he got a no contest to Chris Curtis, who was the number 15 ranked guy. So Imavov is not really proving much here when he comes out calling for a title shot. It's like, dude, the dude 2 steps ahead of you is the dude who beat you 2 years ago. Like, if you want a title shot, it looks to me like you got to go fight him.
Oh yeah, it would be wild if he got a title shot off of that performance.
No, and 100%. And it's like, back to that performance, like it speaks to Imavov. It's like, you don't have a masterful performance against a dude who looked like complete shit. Don't you ever call for no title shot. 1, with the dude that already beat you ahead of you. 2, with your most recent wins being Brendan Allen, and then the 15th ranked dude that you got a no contest against or whatever. Or yeah, I guess I actually didn't even. Why is his record not a no contest? Hold on. Oh no, yeah, it was a no contest. That's weird. Aren't you supposed to have a 15-4-1 or something? Or is that a draw? Oh, okay, whatever.
I mean, this also might not be. Oh yeah, he's got the draw there. Yeah, yeah, I think that's like the additional one that they, for whatever reason, don't have on here.
Whatever. Anyway, they're sparing his record. That's crazy. Look at the journalism,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, you're right.
They're taking over.
Yeah, somebody's got to update the website, but fair enough. Either way, yeah, I mean, it all adds up to him not, really inspiring much.
I mean, even actually go back to it one more fight. Again, the early stoppage on the feet from for Jared Cannonier, like whatever you want to talk about, that's deserving of, title shot implications after whatever. Then you get Brendan Allen, and then the performance before that is a horribly boring fucking matchup with Roman Dolidze. This dude's delusional as shit. Why is he ranked so high? This is actually some crazy shit right here. I'm looking at it in hindsight. I know hindsight is everything. He went 5 rounds with Roman Dolidze. I can't believe that one might actually have been more boring than this.
I mean, I think that maybe that's a slightly harsh criticism of it. I mean, that was the fight that had the at the time illegal knee that has now been amended. I remember that fight being somewhat competitive, at least in the early rounds. That was also the fight that Chris Curtis was jawing at him through the cage, and they were yelling at each other. There was some entertaining stuff surrounding that fight, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, either way, again, it all adds up to the same outcome. I mean, it adds up to the same answer in the equation based on what I was getting at. I mean, like, none of these fights and performances are screaming champ. Screaming, yes, this is the next guy. This is the guy that needs to be in the conversation for the shot. I mean, no, like, and we are in an era that's actually might be a Yama video at some point talking about the era of the boring champion. I mean, like, we could not. I will not abide by another boring champ when we have Bilal and Merab both in there. Now, I like Merab. I mean, like, I'm not even really counting him the same way other people do, but what the atmosphere is like. We've got Umar possibly coming in, to take Merab's throne there. I mean, this is, you're trading boring for boring. You had Bilal take it from Leon. You're trading boring for boring to some people. I'm not even necessarily classing myself in this camp, but I'm saying you have champs who are slightly underwhelming to certain people. You throw Imavov into the conversation as far as champs go, and it is a dark era in the time in the time of the UFC.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. I'm looking at, like, just going over it really quick.
Yeah.
This is just not somebody who he's headlined 3 things. He's
Mhm.
headlined 3 fucking fight nights or whatever.
Yes.
It ain't coming. It ain't coming anytime soon. The one time he's gonna get a title shot, I hope somebody's up there. Maybe, I mean, DDP, right? That's the same.
Yeah, it's
DDP's beating
middleweight.
him. DDP's
Oh,
beating this dude easily.
DDP would dog walk him, in my
Sean
opinion.
Strickland skates by with a decision, and we get a trilogy fight at some point with him and DDP. Sean Strickland will dog walk Imavov one more time, and he did it on short notice, I'm pretty sure, last time. So
Yeah, I mean, and then we've got Whitaker and Hamzat coming up. I mean, he could fight the loser of that and maybe make it
that's
based
actually
off of that.
fire. That's fire. But he said he won't fight Hamzat, actually.
Oh God, wow! On top of all of that shit, and you're making stipulations like that. Wow, you're really winning some points with that one, buddy. All right. Well, I mean, whatever the case may be, then if they're gonna really do Rob dirty and make him fight again to get another shot, then maybe that makes sense in some universe. But regardless, either way, again, it's like you shouldn't. The overall point is that you shouldn't have to be going through all of the permutations and iterations of what could be. You should be definitive if you are going to be the champ. Like, it should be that, wow, that guy is so fucking undeniable. He deserves to get that shot. That's how it should be
100%.
looked at, and he's not that.
100%.
All right. Well, that's about enough to say about that. And we come up to the main event of this card, Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. Wow, a round that changed a life, I would say.
I would like to point out, wasn't just a round. This was one sequence that happened probably between 3.5 minutes and 2 minutes. When Moicano got on the ground, first off, I know they said it on the air, and I'm going to take some points. I think it was from Laura. Moicano has the best half guard in the game. He can just hold down anybody he wants in that position, and he just starts to work. And it's crazy to me because, like, I'm watching what he does, and it doesn't look overly impressive. He's just laying on him, really. Like, that's what it looks like. But he's doing all these little things, and then eventually he gets to a position where he starts mauling. Like, BSD is a dude who just takes damage, and he's just expected to just overcome it. And I believe Moicano, after the fight, he said the biggest strength about BSD is going to be his biggest vulnerability. He takes so much damage, Moicano fucks him up in about a minute and a half. And I remember sitting here thinking, like, holy shit, after Moicano landed all the damage, like, there's still 2 minutes left. Like, what is BSD going to have to do here to finish this? And he just ended up laying there getting pounded on. Like, there was this moment that Moicano had his fists up against the cage, and the ref, like, smacked him away because he thought he had his fingers, which was really funny. Because Moicano was just, like, in his zone. Like, I just got this dude underneath me. I'm just pounding away, dropping elbows. And then in the second round, there was none of that. This was watching a blind man strike for 5 minutes. This is what the second round was. BSD, people want to talk about, BSD had a great second round. Like, he was going to win with doctors and stoppage. That's cope. I get it. I understand. I've done it before. But BSD was blind, with one eye glued shut and his hands just spazzing out. Like, this dude, Moicano, took the round off, and I understand. Thankfully, he did, because he would have probably killed this dude. They were going to stop this at some point, and Moicano knew, like, I'm going to win the fight. Like, I don't really have to do any more. The damage is done. Now I just got to stay ahead on the scoreboard kind of deal. He fucked him up.
Yeah. I mean, I would, call it cope if you want. I was saying that I thought that Saint Denis, arguably did take the second round, but then I also saw what you saw with Moicano saying that, he intentionally kind of held back a little bit because he knew that he was so far ahead. Not always the smartest thing because you don't know what's going to happen. But I mean, it was pretty clear what was going to happen. So, okay. Either which way, I mean, what you were saying about Moicano's wrestling and his grappling, his positional work on the ground. I mean, that is certainly undeniable. The small motions that he is able to pull off, because you're saying it's like he's like kind of laying on him. I would disagree. I would say that really what he's doing is if he's not in the position he wants to be in currently, he's getting himself ready to be in the next one, and that is a beautiful thing to watch in sequence because his like it's a little bit different from like straight chain wrestling. Like what you like an American style wrestler would be doing, but it's similar enough in the sense that it's like it's position to position based on what he's getting back, the bodily feedback that he's getting from his opponent. It was on full display in this one and utilized to such an effective degree with that the sequence you were talking about that just essentially swelled shut both of Saint Denis' eyes, one more so than the other, but pretty much both. So yeah, I mean, this was just an extremely technically proficient performance for Moicano. Makes me eat every word that I had said about this fight going into it. I honestly expected more out of Benoit Saint Denis. I was let down by the lack of awareness in the early part of the round, because I mean, it really was almost from the jump. I mean, it basically was just a spinning takedown to start it off. They kind of did the do-si-do for a second there, 2 loops, and Moicano had him down. And then from there, it was just all his work. And it was really beautiful to watch. But, St. Denis just did not have an answer for any of it. The doctor was very thorough to make sure that he was getting the call right to stop the fight. I think in the end, it was the right call to make. Bad night for Benoit Saint Denis and a great night for Moicano that actually in the long run apparently didn't do much for him. He did not get a bump in his rank. He did not get a bonus for his performance. Kind of a bum lot for Moicano after such a dominant performance.
I want to say that it is very I don't know why we don't have people who are willing to elbow more, because it is clear if you elbow towards the eyes, one cut it is going to end the fight, almost guarantee. Like, it doesn't matter if it's if anywhere in the eyebrow area gets a cut, it's gonna get ended as long as you just keep working at it. So I don't know why people don't take notes. And go ahead, I'll let you finish that because I have another.
Well, yeah, all I want to say is that now that the 12-6 elbow rule has been amended in the unified rules, perhaps you're going to be seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, and so the last point is the most impressive thing that is about this. Not that Moicano was an underdog, not that he won, not that he did it in an incredible fashion. He did this with a broken fucking clavicle.
Bro, wow, how did we not mention that? Holy shit. I mean, on the watch along, myself and Vitz was talking about it. He was like, something looks off, and I was saying, I'm like, maybe it's just some, genetic thing that he had.
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
Bro, you saw that fucking X-ray. Holy shit. How did he get cleared?
It's one thing, like, okay. While I was sitting here thinking about how I wanted to approach I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, maybe the doctors did notice and they're like, yo, what the fuck is that? Like, hello? And Moicano was like, no, fuck that. I'm fighting whatever fucking accent he's got. And he just like went off with it. Like, I'm going to fight either way. Like, I'm here to fight.
That's not his call to make, though.
True. But I don't know, bro. Like, there's no way you wouldn't notice that. Like, you got to.
That's what I mean. I mean, yeah. Well, that's the thing. So, like, what I had asked was, I don't know if I guess they don't X-ray coming into fights. I guess that maybe. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, because if any doctor on the planet saw that X-ray, I mean, there's no way in hell he would have been able to fight. But that's so. I mean, it's even without an X-ray, you talk about the fucking eye test. I mean, come on. This is like, that was the most obvious thing on the planet. It was the first thing that Fitzking said during, when the fight started. Like, what the fuck is up with his shoulder?
So very impressive for him to not only win with virtually one arm, in my opinion, but to use that arm to inflict damage that wins the fight ultimately. Shout out Moicano, because he's not a punk like TJ Dillashaw, who, he's gonna cry about his shoulder the whole fight. That's why you lost. Moicano comes into the fight with a shoulder that's not even attached. and he's ready to go. Like it's crazy. This dude's a beast. I'll never forget this performance. I'm serious.
Oh, for
This is
sure. Yeah.
one. This is one of the greatest performances. Like talk about like okay, you want to talk about pound for pound fighters in the moment. Like what? Like this is a prime alter ego UFC 5 type shit right here. This version of Moicano was like golden. Super Saiyan 99 overall, like whatever you want to say. This dude was God right here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this comparison as like an apples to apples thing, but I will say that when 300 rolled around this year and we saw the BMF fight, and I had said that Max Holloway has found his final form. He is in the best condition and highest fight IQ that he's ever been at. He is the realized version of what he's been striving to become as a fighter. I would say that the same basic principle seems to be applying to Moicano as he progresses now. I mean, again, they're very different. I'm not saying that they're one to one in their style or any of that kind of stuff. Just as where the fighter evolves into with all of the skills that they have acquired over time. I mean, you go back into Moicano's record, we were looking at this a little bit. I mean, the people that he's beaten and the people that he's lost to, this is a murderer's row over here of amazing fighters. I mean, like his losses hold up extremely well. I mean, except for RDA. That's the only one that I would say
No,
RDA.
Chan Sung Jung, right? Is that the
Well,
Korean
yeah,
zombie?
Korean Zombie. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that holds. I would say that holds up.
Okay.
I mean, Korean Zombie was a fucking beast,
Well,
especially when they fought. I mean, like that was earlier, wasn't it?
and so I want to make the point too, as
Yeah,
I talked about this
2019.
earlier, is like the stoppage that happened with Fazeev and Jose Aldo. Those were both like clear early stoppages in my opinion. The one with Aldo, he was still on the feet, or maybe he got knocked and he was ready, or was the other one with Fazeev that he was still on the feet. But either way, they got stopped way too early. In my opinion.
But
So
yeah,
that
fair enough. And regardless of that aspect of it, I mean, that could very well be true for those fights and their circumstances for any of the losses. But really, I mean, you look at this record, the losses are all to people who are stars in their own right or were at one time, and the wins, I mean, like rate them how you want to rate them, but Jeremy Stevens, Calvin Kattar, Cub Swanson, one of my favorite fighters of all time. I mean, everybody's a big Jai Herbert
Kirby,
fan for some reason. Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's like, and then even like young guns like Hernandez, who, at the time, I mean, he sort of, kind of fizzled out, but had a little bit of hype surrounding him. Drew Dober, one of the toughest guys ever. I mean, these are great wins. My point in all of that is that he has cut his teeth on some very impressive fighters to become what he is now and get to where he is now. I think that we're seeing the fully realized version of Money Moicano at this point.
100%.
So there you have it. So I mean, that is UFC Fight Night Moicano versus Saint Denis. I know that you said that you enjoyed this card overall. Is your assessment still the same as after we've done all of our analysis?
Yeah, this one was really good, man. This holds up. This was better than Islam Dustin. This was better than Pantoja, and whatever guy he fought. That dude's dead too. Forgot about that.
Oh, Steve Erceg.
Yeah, this one was good. This one holds up. I like that a lot.
All right, well, fair enough then. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that this was still, somewhat of a slightly mid, but on the higher end of mid. And again, I'm easy to please, so it's definitely not a huge negative in the grand scheme of things. So
100%.
good overall. All right, well, do you want to jump into week 7 real quick to go
We'll
over
go
some
back
of
to
those?
week 7.
All right, so this is week 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. This is not the event that was just held last night. This is from the week prior. So these are a little bit older now, but we can run through them real quick. What do you think of this Thainara versus Conceição?
It'll be a quick run through, that is,
Sure.
because the internet was not letting me watch the entire show. So I skipped the backstories, unfortunately. I don't know much about them. But I do take away that it was a good experience because I didn't get to make a prejudgment based on like, oh, this person had a hard upcoming. They're really going to fight their ass off type of deal. I had none of that. So going into it, I'm watching the fight. And this Thainara girl is really bringing it the entire time. Like she was really there to fight. And she kind of had like a look to her that like is made for the UFC. Like I think she's going to thrive. And even after the fight, I know it went to the decision. I knew she was going to get a contract. Like, you need women's fighter all the time, especially somebody who wants to fight, who's going to push the pace. Like, that was an easy one to take.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, in the words of Swan from the Warriors, one tough chick.
Yeah,
I mean, she like really coming in there just like a wrecking ball, bull in a china shop. I mean, this chick was really in there, hungry as fuck to get the win. And against Conceição, who I mean, she was trying to hold her own, but when you have that much of an opposition coming at you, it was just hard for her to keep up. I really enjoyed the way that Thainara fought.
100%.
All right. Well, and also, I guess I should just mention as well. That is one thing that I have considered. You were saying that you weren't listening to all the backstory stuff, because of the dynamic that we have on the watch along streams, myself and Vitz King, and with the television and all that. Like, we kind of keep the volume low for copyright reasons, stuff like that. So I sort of in my mind sometimes I'm like, am I missing too much when I'm not watching the backstory stuff? I actually came to the conclusion that it's kind of better because if I need to know these backstories, they will come out when they get their contracts, and we'll get a recap of it when they're in the organization, and and then I'll get it online or wherever else. So I'm kind of okay with also not knowing too much about these fighters. I like to go in just judging strictly off of their performances, and Thainara is a great example of one who her performance told me everything I needed to know.
100%.
All right. Well, I mean, if there were performances and then there are fucking performances, and this is Kevin Vallejos versus Cam Teague. Vallejos, what a fucking boxing phenom over here.
Yeah, he came out and dropped some bombs real early. The dude that he was fighting, like, he's got that face and that look that, like, when he walks out and you see him, you're like, yeah, if this dude loses, I mean, you can see why. Like, golly, man. And he's just goofy, and he got put down. And he also has that thing. It's like, this is a look that you have, and like, maybe he is a killer back where he comes home and he's got that real goofy look to him. It's like, oh, he's that guy you don't want to mess with. But like, Kevin really dropped some fucking nukes. And I think this Cam Teague dude, he'll probably make a second round in Contender Series. Like, no big deal. But this one was just Kevin's moment.
For sure. And what I had said, I had counted it at 14. Dana counted it at 20 strikes in the sequence that ended this fight. When he let those hands go, it was a sight to behold, man. Again, his boxing is just next level. Again, I mean, granted, it's against a dude, we talk about the blank canvas every once in a while here on the show. He wasn't getting a ton of opposition back, so it's a little bit hard to tell what it's going to be like when he's got somebody who's going to be standing and banging with him, throwing it right back at him. But when he had the opening and capitalized, it was that. I mean, it looked like a Street Fighter combo. So, very impressive there. The other note that I did have on the other side of that equation, though, is that we didn't see any of his ground game. And anytime that you see a fighter who is so dominant in one area, it always gives me pause because we need to see how well-rounded they are in totality.
100%.
But I mean, either way. And also what I wanted to note that I said on Monday too, is that I believe that this is the guy that had said that he was willing and ready to fight Movsar. I mean, after a performance like that, part of me is like, shit, let the guy do it.
Yeah, too bad it ain't happening.
Nah, it's not going to happen. But either way, I mean, just still,
Yeah.
I appreciate the balls. And the other note is that his only loss is to Gene Silva, and we know what a killer that guy has turned out to become. So this Vallejos is a guy to keep an eye on out of Argentina.
Somebody to not keep an eye out on is this Kevin Christian dude.
Uh-huh.
Wow, this guy, I'm actually so upset that this is one of those fights where you look at the board and it doesn't tell you the whole story. This is one you'll go down and be like, oh, look, he's got a sub. This was one of the worst performances by, I get he's a big dude, but these dudes stood in front of each other. That second round, man, they stood in front of each other and neither one of them were throwing punches. They couldn't. They were so tired. And the Kevin Christian dude is so tall, but has no idea how to use his reach. Like, the fact that he got a sub, honestly, is pretty impressive considering how stupid he looked on the feet. I'll give him that.
It's wild. I mean, that was so, I had kind of hinted at it in the Roosevelt Roberts fight that we talked about against Ludovic Klein earlier in the stream. talk about tall for nothing. I mean, this guy does not use his range in the slightest. I was just looking at this like, bro, are you going to throw a kick? Are you going to try to strike from distance in any meaningful way? It was, I mean, it's just the performance was so lackluster. And really, what I thought in the end, why it was so wild that he did end up getting a contract, is that really, to me, this was Mizeo's fight to lose, and he sold it. I mean, like, he gassed out. He was looking really sluggish early in that second round. And, it got away from him almost by his own fault. And he sort of fell into the position that Christian needed to get the triangle up, because it really didn't take a lot for him to get the triangle once he knew that he had the opening for it. So the fact that he got a contract off of that is kind of crazy. Mick Maynard saw something that he wanted, whatever. I mean, it's light heavyweight. I wouldn't think that they're hurting for fighters in that division, but either way, yeah, this was one of the most underwhelming performances that I've seen on the Contender Series. Definitely this year, if not, for the last couple.
I can't believe, honestly, like you said, like light heavyweight, maybe they do need people, but they don't need this motherfucker. Like this dude didn't show. Okay, so like you look at Johnny Walker, you're like, this dude's okay, he can move. He's like big as hell. He's like a specimen. This guy here is like, what can he do that's good? That he didn't strike well. When he got to the ground, he didn't look like he was knowing what to do. Again, I'm so surprised he got this submission. I'm serious. The fact that he has more than one submission is very, very crazy to me. 6'7", and your main fucking thing is submissions. What like, are you serious? Like, where did you, who trained you like this?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Big for nothing for sure. And I mean, I guess I can't zoom in effectively on this picture, but you're saying Johnny Walker's such a specimen. I mean, this guy is clearly the opposite, just even based on the small image that you can see here. I mean, he's sort of pudgy. I mean, he's a little, he's not a specimen in that regard. Again, he's just tall. And
It is,
yeah.
it's crazy sometimes. I guess there's two types of the Contender Series. There's the extremely ripped person that just like randomly comes in and they're like, "Oh, I'm a mom that just like drives my girls to school," like, and it's like, or like, "Oh, I'm a fucking anything like that." Or then you have the random pudgy person that is like super skilled randomly, like, and you just like, where did you learn this skill? But you're also like out of shape, just like working in the mines, like. Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know where in that spectrum Kevin Christian falls, but he did get the triangle submission one way or another. So, good on him, I suppose. And really, I mean, that's talking about what the light heavyweight division needs. Yeah, it's certainly not this guy, because really, what do you what do you do with this guy? I mean, like, does he end up just being fodder for some better guy
For
to?
Robellis.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, if Robellis cuts down, that might not be a bad idea, honestly. But I mean, like, that's the whole thing. It's just like what ends up becoming of a fighter like this, because as I said on the stream yesterday, the Contender Series, some of these guys, and we'll talk next week, or next Monday, about one Torres Finney finally ended up getting his long awaited contract. But the point is that the Contender Series getting the win and the contract is not the end. It is the beginning. It is just your beginning in this organization. So it's like, yeah, you do all of this work to get to the starting line. So when you see a guy like this, it's just like, what becomes of him in the organization? I would be very, very cautious about putting any backing behind him. In fact, if you see him coming up in a fight in the organization, remember this conversation.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we'll leave that one there. But this next one is Daniel Frunza versus Vadim Kutsi. What'd you think?
This was where it was getting really hard to finish the episode just because of the internet and stuff. So I don't remember this one necessarily, but the fact that this dude is from Belarus, it's like, yo, do they rename places? Like, how many times am I gonna find out new places exist? Like, I feel like that's like a thing you go through in a whole month, and it's like, oh, okay, I know everything now. We're like, bro, this dude's got to be the one and only. So the fact that he didn't win, put on for his country, it sucks. But I don't remember.
All right, fair enough. They don't rename them, but you do. It's Belarus.
Oh, well, either way.
got,
That's a
got,
good one.
yeah, all right. But yeah, but Belarus is yeah, I mean, it's definitely an underrepresented country, but it is kind of close to
Lithuania. I just
yeah,
looked.
it's, Lithuania, Ukraine. It's that kind of region of the world. So yeah, I mean, tough guy though, one way or another. What I had said was that he throws heavy for sure. He got caught early and had the good fight IQ to get it to the ground to get himself some recovery time, and was able to do that for a second. But and then ended up getting an uppercut later in that same round to drop Frunza. So I mean, the guy is not a slouch necessarily, even from a country that is severely underrepresented in the sport so far. Yeah, I mean, the big note for Kutsi that I had was that he was winging shots, and the amount of like lead up to the shot, like, I mean, he was starting his shots like fucking back here and like swinging all the way around. So I mean, even if you're throwing fast, the telegraphing is just has to be there. I mean, that's something that he needs to get some coaching on, because there are going to be fighters that, even with the speed, are going to be able to see if you're starting your swing so far back like that to wing those shots. It is crazy. And easily counterable, I would think. You know, a guy who has good head movement, good bodily movement overall, is going to be able to slip that, get in and counter you pretty easily. But overall, I mean, Kutsi ended up gassing out. Frunza did a nice job staying calm under the pressure, and let Kutsi kind of outwork himself, and that just ended up being what it ended up being. So all's well that ends well for Mr. Frunza. And, that's really all there is to say about it. It wasn't a super impressive performance in my opinion either, but, he ended up getting a contract. I wasn't super mad at it.
Yeah, I can't really say too much.
I would
else
have
about
I
that.
would have been extremely mad if he had not gotten a contract and Christian did. That would have been
Mhm.
upsetting. But since Christian ended up getting a contract and he did, I'm like, all right, apparently they're just giving contracts out tonight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's been the last couple of weeks, to be honest with you.
For sure. I mean, yesterday I thought was more appropriate. We'll talk about it, of course, on Monday. But this one, yeah, there was a couple that probably could have done without contracts. But just to finish it out, this is what was his first name? Bailey Schoenfelder versus Danilo Voivodkin. Were you able to catch any of this, or was this also a problem for you?
Two big slobs that I really didn't. Yeah, wasn't too worried about. But the fact that we got a sub in the first minute, I was happy. Like, wow, I don't have to watch this at potato frames anymore.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, really, it was, the big story of it was that Voivodkin was able to overcome being an extremely high underdog, extremely heavy on the dog side. I mean, these numbers were not what the numbers were on the night. I believe that Bailey was somewhere in the range of like a minus 1100 or something like that, at least on some books. So, he was a very heavy favorite, and Danilo ended up, catching him with a right left combo, bing bang boom. So and then it choked him out, and all is well there as well. So I mean, it ended up being a decent performance just based on the fact that he was able to generate the power. And the other note is that Danilo went to Caio Bahaio's tattoo artist for his little fight to the end tattoo on his stomach, which is somewhat atrocious, but only second atrocious to the tattoo on his back that looks like it was printed onto his skin via a laser printer.
You know, I do know some really bad ones. Obviously, Diego Lopez has a bad tattoo, but I don't think they get worse than the damaged. I think that dude has the worst. That one's definitely the god.
The Damage is a beloved figure around these parts. If you've ever seen the Yama logo, that is the man behind the black bar. And so I will always have a special place in my heart for Darren Elkins. But yes, you are correct. That is one of the absolute worst. It's up there with who is it that has that? Is it Alan Belcher? It might be. If it's not Alan Belcher, it's a guy of that same sort of ilk who has that terrible Johnny Cash tattoo, the one that Johnny Cash sort of looks like a adult sized baby.
Darren Till has a bad one too.
For sure. I mean, we can go for days
Yeah,
on bad
true,
MMA
true.
tattoos, but yeah, I mean, but again, really, there was not too much to talk about in this fight aside from the fact that Voivodkin got the job done early. He was a heavy underdog, and yeah, the tattoos. So decent
Good
night
deal.
for week 7 of the Contender Series, running through that in good time. So that is about it for the fights that we had to go over. We were able to get to pretty much everything, so I'm really glad that we were able to do this bonus content for everybody out there. Was there anything in the sport going on that we should address, being that some stuff always is happening in the sport over the course of the time that we are not on stream? Just looking at it real quick, Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson was just announced. This is kind of a make or break, in my opinion, for Mr. Jackson. We've talked about him a couple of times on this stream. A guy that really does seem to have a lot of heart, but just doesn't seem to be able to put the puzzle together. He's got to get out there and do some nasty work against the Iron Man, Jim Miller.
Yeah, that fight just doesn't excite me at all. Like, I could care less.
It only excites me in the sense that I just like seeing Jim Miller continue to fight, just because he's been, he is the Iron Man of the sport right now. I mean, I don't know if he's the oldest active fighter. I mean, I would venture to say he's probably not the oldest active fighter, period, but I think he's among the oldest active fighters in the organization currently fighting. So he's definitely been around the longest at this point. I mean, this guy has been fighting forever. It's I appreciate that element of the story, and if he can pull off another win, I mean, again, he is a great example of a guy that just continues to fight. He's not concerned about getting ranked and making a run and doing all the other stuff that people in the sport want to do. He gets the call, he goes out, he fights his fight, he gets his money. I think that there's some merit to that.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to bring up, and if you heard me typing a little bit ago, sorry, I was looking up to see if I could find any article to figure out why Zigomantis Ramaska was cut.
Yes, we had talked about that a little bit off stream. That is a little bit odd and somewhat unfortunate. I guess, were you able to find anything? Nothing's coming up, huh?
No, nothing. I looked up like no longer in the UFC, removed from UFC. I even went to like the roster watch thing and like looked under the comments. Nobody seems to know.
Yeah, it's as I had mentioned on I believe it was the Sunday stream before the Paris card. Sometimes, man, it's just the whim of the organization, and I really do believe that. That there's just, because like you look at that fight. I mean, it was not a bad performance for Ziggy Mantis before he ended up getting caught, and that happens. I mean, how many? Of course, that happens all the fucking time. So I mean, like, I can't imagine that he pissed somebody off. He seems like a fucking choir boy. I mean, like, it definitely didn't seem like a fucking Mohammed Mokayev type. I mean, he's not out there running his mouth. He was a nice enough guy on the show. I thought he was decent for the competition. Obviously, cared enough about the sport to continue on. Would have continued on through injury. That was what sidelined him from fighting in the what I guess would have been the finale, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, how do you just like get rid of your tough contestant that was almost like he almost could have won the shit? Like,
I mean, I guess maybe that's the justification, is like, look, that was your shot um, to further what you had started on Tough. You didn't win. These other guys from Tough who lost didn't get a contract. Maybe that's how they justify it. But it is unfortunate, because I did like the way that he fights, and I thought that he would have been a nice addition to the division. So, yeah, unfortunate for Mr. Ziggy.
yeah, and so I guess that can bring into a different conversation. Is like, Dana White said something about Magomed Ankalaev. Like after Alex Pereira and Khalil Rountree, he was like, maybe he can find himself in a title shot depending on if he impresses in his next fight with Rakic. And I'm thinking like, yo, dog, this isn't the Contender Series. Like, you have to like give people title shots whether they impress you or not, right? Like, I don't care if it's a good performance. It's like if he wins, like, brother, he's getting a title shot. Like, what are you talking about, Dana? So like,
I mean, but you say that until they decide otherwise. I mean, I think that obviously John Jones has proven that
true.
Sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, and that is one of those things in this sport that can be extremely frustrating in general. Is the fact that the rankings are essentially arbitrary to an extent. I mean, they're not, but they are. And that it's like one of those elements of the fight game. It's like, it's not like other sports where, the team that wins the most goes to the championship game. It's like, you can see these guys who've been out here doing the best work for all this time. I mean, I made the entire video about the situation with John Jones and Tom Aspinall based on the fact that Tom Aspinall is languishing in his prime years. I mean, how many times does this guy have to beat everyone's ass before he actually gets what he deserves? It's like, well, if you've got a big John Jones sized roadblock in the way, then it's just going to be what it's going to fucking be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so I agree. Trust me, I agree. I mean, I would love Merritt to be more accounted for, but as Dana would often say in his interviews, his post fights and all that kind of stuff, we're making the most exciting fights that the fans want, blah blah blah. Obviously there's a lot of factors that go into the decision making process, but that's what the matchmakers are for, and the whim of the fans is also what's that factors into that, and that's why. Good point to make, just as a general note in this sport. If you want something, or if you have a definitive opinion about something, get it out there into the public, because if enough people are saying things, the organization will eventually listen. That is something I like about the sport, is that
100%.
because I mean, like, a good example of that, much lesser example, but still an example nonetheless, is when Bo Nickel was above Charles Oliveira and Armin Tsarukyan versus Cody Brundage on 300. In the order of the card, people were saying, how the fuck do you have a former champion, a fan favorite, a dude who's been vetted in this sport, fighting underneath Bo Nickel and the can du jour? I mean, your opponent of the week, essentially. Not, I mean, I'm not trying to dog Cody Brundage, but basically that's what it ended up being. And then the organization listened. They changed the bout order. So I'm not saying
100%.
that it's going to be across the board that will happen, but just keep in mind and that's why I know that all of the stuff that's going on with Tom Aspinall, the organization hears all of it. They know what's happening here. It's, Dana's sick John Jones obsession trumps everything, unfortunately, but they're aware. So Tom Aspinall will eventually get his just desserts, but it's going to take a little while.
100%.
So, yeah, so there's all of that. Let's see. I mean, I was going through, and there's really just a lot of yap going on. In fact, speaking of yapping, I did think that this was kind of a funny line. I'll give Raquel Pennington a little bit of some praise here, because she, to be perfectly honest, she doesn't really get much. But she did say that we all know Juliana Pena has a master's degree in yapology, which I thought was pretty funny. Because funny and true, Juliana Pena, there's a great Facebook group or a Facebook page that is no longer active, but I want to give the guy a shout out. It was called MMA Logic. It was just a guy who had a page on Facebook, but the guy had extremely based takes and very analytical takes. And I miss this guy and his posts, because he was a dude. This is actually even before Yama. I literally would just message this guy and talk about fights every once in a while, because he was just an extremely knowledgeable guy about the sport and the way that he looked at the sport. And I just really appreciated the work that he was doing. And it seems like he's kind of gone away and hasn't posted in a long time. But I say all of that just because this was prior to Juliana getting her shot against Amanda Nunes. He was saying that she is one of the best mouthpieces in all of the women's divisions. Like, she's one of the best talkers in women's MMA. So, I mean, love her or hate her, I kind of do somewhat agree with that. I mean, she certainly gets the conversation going because she does have a big mouth.
100%. I mean, I get you. I was just looking at her record, though. She's definitely losing.
You think she's losing to Rocky?
I think Rocky will get it done. I think her time is here.
Okay, interesting. I mean, that's a spicy take, considering how that last fight played out with Mayra Buena Silva. I mean, that was a little bit, that fight somehow sneaks under the radar for how boring it was. That was a really not great fight.
It's because it was Pennington. I mean, one, it was because it was girls. Two, is because it was Pennington.
But yeah, well, fair. But I mean, you have the criticism of Rose versus Carla Esparza.
Wasn't that a title fight though?
But I mean, this was a title fight.
True.
Too.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's because it was vacant. Like, who cared? Like,
I mean, I don't know. I think that's if that is I don't know what the reasoning is, but if that's the reasoning, it seems like a weird stretch to me.
Well, maybe nobody's thinking because it's hard to remember. Like, oh, Pennington is the champ, because she didn't decisively beat a champ for her belt kind of deal. She just she won a fight and got handed a belt kind of deal. I don't think it's I feel like it's different. That's just me.
For sure. And look, whatever the reasoning is, all I'm saying is that needs to, I'm not I'm gonna hold the torch for that one. I'm not letting that one die. In the fact that should be in the conversation of most boring title fights for sure.
100%.
But yeah, if it is Rocky's time, that'd be fine. I think that Pena has a pretty good shot of winning that fight. But she's been very inactive, like for all of this time waiting to come back. So I mean, we're just gonna have to see what version shows up.
See, and it's another thing. It's like Pena's been beat every which way.
That is
Like,
true. Yeah, yeah. She
so
has
Rocky
taken her
could
licks.
sub her. She could really just like, I don't know. Pena, she does that stupid run where she just runs forward and just blast punches. So she might get dropped. Like, who knows? Like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. I kind of hope that Pena wins just because like I said, I think that she is one of the better talkers in women's MMA, and you know, I can see it from both sides because it is women's, or women in general, that some people, would look at it as yap and this and that. But I mean, as really, where's the, like, I had asked this question, I think it might have been of MMA Logic back in the day, of saying, like, who are the great female trash talkers? I mean, you had Ronda to an extent just because of her attitude. And then, I mean, Betchko Hea, I mean, like, there's not really that many, like, great talkers in women's MMA. So, it's nice every once in a while to get somebody who can, talk it in a way that builds a little bit of excitement, whether you like it or not.
yeah, I mean, you can talk about Eileen Perez all you want, but she's a great mouthpiece for the UFC.
All right, bringing it back around. I mean, one of these days, man. I mean, I tried to give you the alley oop there. Throwing a tweet her way to to get you on the radar. This is actually for anybody who's out there watching. Make sure you go over and follow my boy Chase Parton on Twitter, because you will see one of the greatest gifts I've ever seen in my life. I think of the. This man, what exactly was that? Was that a Fortnite emote you were doing, or?
I don't know. I saw it in a TikTok and I was like, man, that looks really fun. I'm gonna do it.
Motherfuckers out here bouncing around. That booty will make men do crazy things.
Yeah, it's got me thinking, like, that video. I was like, yeah, I think it's also because I want to try to make like a George Lopez inspired like video. I want to make one of those for myself. Like, it'd be my intro. Be
Ah,
floating around in the air.
dope.
So like that was like the beginning of. I'm trying to think like how I can frame it to where I'm floating. That was obviously the first test.
All right. Well, you certainly got the job done. You were airborne for sure. But any which way, yeah, so I just bring that up just to bring it up, I guess. But we'll be seeing that fight on 307. I guess we can just take a real. I mean, we've been going for a little while here, but we can take just a quick look at 307. This is a little preview for next Monday, because we'll go over some of these fights as well on Monday. But at least for the upper portion of the main card here, of course, we've got Alex Pereira and Khalil Roundtree. I mean, are you on this hype train that Khalil Roundtree has somehow, some way cultivated for himself? I have no idea how, but he has.
I will say through the word and through the power of positivity, Khalil has definitely summoned a fan base for him, like in this championship fight. But I feel like it's the same thing with Chris Curtis, and I bought in not Chris Curtis, Curtis Blade, excuse me. I bought into it. Like, oh, he's such a nice guy. He's so wholesome. Like, he's got the the speech imped. He's got the list. The story. Blah 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 blah. And like, you feel bad for him, or you feel something. And this time I feel it again. But I'm not gonna hear it this time. Khalil, you arguably don't even deserve this shot, brother. Like, what are you doing here? You're gonna come in here and get knocked, and it's just gonna be a free win for Poton to make some more history, because this is his fourth fight this year. So it'll be his third title defense. Whatever.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, first and foremost here, shout out to the GOAT, Jack Director. How you
He's
doing,
crazy.
brother, man? But Jack, bringing up the point, which is why I am loving having this ability to highlight these comments, because what he's saying here, but I just want to see Khalil win. That, I think, is a big part of how this all got to where it is. And I don't really even know why, because Pereira is such, I mean, or at least the way that they're trying to portray him. And I think that there is some merit to it, is that, he is this fan favorite. He's cultivated his own following, and, done it with outspeaking English, all of the chama, everything that you know about Alex Pereira. is all there for him. And I guess that maybe people are just getting a little tired of the act. I don't know if that's what it is or whatever has happened. But if you take a step back here, I mean, we're talking about a dude, like you said, who it's extremely a long shot to even say that he deserves this in the first place. Number 8. I mean, we thought that it was crazy when Steve Ursa got a title shot, and it was, but we're talking flyweights at that point. This is light heavyweight, brother. I mean, this is, you're not scrambling for light heavyweights. I mean, like, flyweight, you can at least make the points like, oh, you don't necessarily have as many small guys in the UFC or whatever. I mean, like, there's different ways to justify it. When you're talking like one of the premier divisions now, when you have a star like Alex Pereira at the top of it, going against the number 8 seed here. I mean, this is just it's insane to me that all these people out there have bought into this idea that Khalil Roundtree somehow has this magical power. And I mean, he's been talking about the ace up his sleeve. He's got this secret weapon, whatever.
Voodoo.
Bro, they all fucking say that. I mean, fucking Jamal Hill was saying the same shit. So
Yeah.
what I don't understand this. I don't get it. I mean, it's all very weird to me. But I whatever. I guess it also goes back to what Jack's saying here. Just tired of seeing Alex.
Yeah, Khalil is funny, and since you brought up Jamal, I'll bring up how funny he is because he was like, Alex, he struggles with southpaws. He must have forgot that he is also a southpaw and got knocked out. So good times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Jack is talking about Khalil's time on, I guess, on Tough, and then this other time as well. I do not remember that he told his mother to shut up in the cage. Is that a thing? This is what I'm saying about Khalil Roundtree as well. I've said this in the past too, that like there's just stuff about him that I always liken it to in cartoons when you can like see like an aura, like a negative aura, or just like a miasma, just like a bunch of particles all around, just like almost like Pigpen from Peanuts. You just got like this cloud that sort of surrounds you at all times. That sort of is how I've always looked at Khalil Roundtree. There's just something about him that rubs me the wrong way. Also, of course, the oblique kick that nearly ended the career of Modestas Bukauskas has to be taken into consideration, even though it was legal. Not saying that that he was wrong by doing that because it was a legal strike, but again, you add that into everything else. There's just something about him, the cult notwithstanding, there's things that are just off with him. And then now Jack is telling me that he told his mom to shut up in the cage. That is pretty funny. I'm gonna have to look that up. So thank you for keying me into that.
Yeah, Jack, you're crazy with it, man. But I appreciate you for being here, bro. You should have been here a
Yeah,
little earlier. We broke down a lot of fights that I
absolutely.
missed personally get to talk about. I can run down an Eileen Perez rant if you would like.
Brother is looking for any opportunity to go back to his lady Eileen Perez. But no, we are talking about 307 at the moment. And I mean, really, we'll see what happens in the Pereira fight. But I agree. I mean, I think that this is just going to be yet another person to add to the list of Alex Pereira, victories, at least the way that I'm seeing it.
Victims.
Yeah, exactly. I add it to the to the body count, unless something crazy happens. But one thing I will say, and this is kind of goes to Jack's point, and in general, this conversation that is now surrounding Khalil Roundtree, is that the organization does need to be a little bit careful about going back to the Alex Pereira well one too many times. We talk about that in fights; it can be detrimental. It can also be detrimental to a star like Alex Pereira. I mean, you're oversaturating people with him at this point. Like you might want to, you know, look to other fighters to fill out your main events.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that Alex came in here and like just really took the division by a storm. I know he started out at a lower weight, but that was like him just testing the water. He came into light heavyweight and there's no turning back for him. Like he's gonna run this shit till Sugar Sean, I'm gonna run this shit till 2032. It's like if Alex wasn't 30 fucking 6 or whatever, he might run this shit till 2050. Like this dude's a beast.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, like, aside from maybe uh Magomed, I mean, aside from him, it's hard to think of a guy that can really offer any kind of strong opposition to him. No one seems to be able or willing to go, because I think that what a lot of the people, the problem that a lot of people are having is that they, in their own mind and in their hearts, believe like, I'm going to be the guy that can knock this dude out. I saw Israel Adesanya do it. Obviously it's possible, but then they get in there with this light heavyweight version of him and the power that he possesses. And, it's the Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So,
Yep.
I just think too many people are going in there like, because they were having this whole conversation, him and Khalil, about, if you shoot first, you have to donate to charity, whatever. Bro, shut the fuck up and shoot on this man. Like, I don't give a fuck what the consequences are, what you've been talking about, any of that shit. Fucking take him down. Take him down.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
not rocket science.
It's crazy. He's gonna find himself in a matchup against Dricus at some point. I think Alex is really gonna go down, because that's gonna be the most interesting matchup that we could see at this point. Because other than Magomed, of course, but if Alex somehow goes down, and there's a potential fight between him and Dricus, like I don't know, man. That's some crazy shit to think about.
Well, so okay, so because you brought it up, I will say what I've heard from Dricus, and this is an interesting way to frame it. Dricus is the more that I listen to Dricus, like day by day, even the more that I like him. I think that he is one of the most intelligent people in this sport, point blank. Period.
I agree.
What he had said, and because of that, I say that to say, what he had said was that he wants to fight Pereira at light heavyweight. He does not want Pereira to come down. And his justification for this was that he doesn't want there to be any possibility for the fan base to say, oh, Alex it's a hard cut to middleweight for him. He was depleted, blah, blah, blah. He wants to move up in order to meet him at his weight class for the fight. Now, is that legit? Is he saying that to make a case for himself moving up for his own benefit, is my question, because he is a little bit of a 4D chess player.
Yeah, he might be, but I do agree that's not smart, but it's commendable by Dricus, and I do like him. He's a very respectable champ. So anything that he wants to do, I'm following him.
For sure. Oh yeah, most definitely. He can really, at this point. I mean, it would take I was a little bit critical of him with the stuff that he was talking with Sean Strickland before their fight or whatever. That aside, I mean, honestly, I think that he even handled that pretty well once Strickland made it apparent that it was something that he thought was beyond the pale. He said, okay, look, if that's how you feel about it, I won't say it again. I thought that was pretty commendable. So, even when I think he goes a little beyond the pale, he figures out a way to bring it back around. And then aside from that, there's really nothing negative that you can say about the guy. He is, that's the only way I'll say it, is that he's one of the most intelligent people in this sport, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I agree.
So, but we'll end up seeing, because I mean, that is obviously going to be a pretty enticing fight. I mean, that's also, I think, one of these problems that you run into at this point with Alex Pereira, is that because he has the star power and this, the aura that people talk about around him, now it's like he's pulled in a lot of different directions. So what does the organization want to do? I mean, like Jones said that he might stick around for a fight with Alex Pereira. If he was thinking about retiring after Stipe, which he very well might do, and still, who knows what's actually going to happen there, is fucking John Jones. But, I mean, that was something he said might have been enticing to him. So do you move him up to heavyweight at that point? And then, God help Tom Aspinall if that happens.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's like, or does he, move down for the fight with Dricus? Does he stay at light heavyweight to have Dricus move up? I mean, there's a lot of variables when it comes to Alex Pereira with all of the factors that go into him as a fighter. So it's interesting times.
There's so many opportunities to make so much money off Alex, and he's so down because, hey, I forget sometimes, like I see Alex and Sean Strickland hanging out, and I had this passing moment. It's like, that's a weird mix, because he was talking about how he likes training with Sean, like, he's real respectful, he's this and that, and it's like, that's a weird mix. But then I often think, like, I forget Alex is like down. He's like a guy who just came from nothing type of deal. Like his life changed in like the last 4 years type of deal. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I
So,
mean, he was doing the glory thing a little bit
well,
before
but
that,
like,
but still, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong though.
yeah, like getting
Relatively, yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a meteoric rise. I mean, really, that's what the stats about Pereira. I forget which Yama episode it was, but I went through some of, like, if you take it all in context, at least at the time that I was making that video, I mean, like, the stats are insane. This is what I mean when we talk about the GOAT list conversation. That was my overall point. It's like, look, you can continue to rest your GOAT rankings on the Anderson Silvas and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, but you can't deny that the guy comes into the organization, gets 4 fights or whatever it was, and then a title shot, and then from there just continues this. He also one of the most active champions that we've ever seen as well. I mean,
Yeah.
he's now this, I believe, I think I read that if he wins this fight, he will now have broken Ronda Rousey's record for the quickest or the most title defenses in a certain time period. I forget what
Yeah,
if
something
it's
like
that,
that.
see, whatever it is. But I mean, the point is that it's like, it's just what he has done in a limited amount of time it's unparalleled. So whether or not you rate him higher than anybody else on your GOAT list, you gotta give the respect where respect is due. I mean, he's doing things that no one else has done.
To answer Jack's point, I don't
Uh,
think he's definitely not over Anderson Silva yet. That's definitely not true. He's getting close to being like in a different category, but being higher than Anderson in some regards. I've compared Alex to the Spider Silva before, especially after what he did to Yuri. Like I saw the comparison, just how like easily he was able to embarrass his opponents. Like that was what I noticed the similarity was. Like Anderson Silva wasn't just beating people, like what he did to Forrest Griffin. He just like he made him look silly. Like that's what he did to Yuri, and like that's the only thing that I can say about him and Anderson. You can't really compare what they've done because Alex is doing something way different.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to necessarily put him over Anderson Silva, in the broad scheme of things. However, what I will always go back to, and I know that this is like one of those things that just needles at people so much, and I hate to have to do it to you. I hate to have to be the guy that's going to needle you this way, but has not popped. Not one time has Pereira popped for PEDs. Now you can, you can chalk it up to gas station dick pills. You can say whatever you want about it. I'm just saying that my GOAT list, it has to be clean. That's a personal thing. But but like if you take that out of the equation, no, of course I wouldn't say that he is above Anderson Silva. But I mean, what you can take away from all of that, though, is that with what he has done in the amount of time that he has done it and still actively fighting currently, there is potential there. There is potential for him to overtake him. Also, too, think about where Anderson Silva was at the tail end of his career, where he ended up. I mean, we don't know where Pereira is going to end up himself yet. We got a lot of time to figure that out. But I'm saying that where he's at now and what he is doing is unlike anything that we have seen in this sport, and you have to respect that in and of itself.
100%.
Also, real quick, because this little guy is being a little bit of a menace, let's get a quick Yamacat sighting. Hey, come here, you. Come here, you. Yep, Yamacat. Say hello to everybody, you little menace. This guy is keeping me up at all hours of the day and night.
Has he been growing?
A little bit. I mean, it's gradual, but yeah, he's putting on weight definitely,
Yeah,
considering
yeah.
where he started. But yeah, so gotta give a shout out to little Omen the Yamacat because he is, anytime that you're doing anything, that's not paying attention to him, he's doing something to try to get your attention.
Good deal, man.
Anyway,
This was a good stream, man. I'm glad we had it. I'm glad it actually worked.
yeah, me too. And so obviously don't want to jinx anything, but in all theories, we're praying. I mean, I'll go back and rewatch the VOD to make sure that this is the case, but the internet over here on my side has been upgraded to an extent. So hopefully that will help. Utilizing this platform the way that we're using it now and not having to go through the other means that we were using for the last week's fights prior to this should also help a little bit as well. So all things considered, if the internet in Ohio can hold up for Mr. Parton, we should be back full force next Monday. And from here on out, let's keep our fingers crossed that our internet problems can resolve themselves because we both love doing this. We love hanging out with you guys, and thank you all for that. Um, For Saturday, of course, we've got 307, what we were just talking about. Pereira versus Roundtree is coming up, and we will both be doing our individual watch-alongs. Chase Parton has his channel, I have mine. You can catch me right here with the Vitz King on youtube.com/@YamaShow. We are also live on Twitch, Kick, and Trovo as well. And Chase Parton, I know that you can let the people know where they can find you.
You guys can find me streaming the watch alongs and some maybe funny content, I don't know, on youtube.com/@CPSmalls. And then if you want to come over to Twitter to find me, where I say some questionable things sometimes, it is @CreativeParton, PARTIN.
Make sure you follow my boy and watch him bouncing around like a pogo stick over Eileen Perez. I can be found at Yama Show on Instagram and on Twitter as well. Those are my primary social media outlets. Make sure you follow me as well. There's always some interesting stuff going on there. I am hoping beyond all hope to have a video out this week. We'll see how that ends up going. But either way, new content coming for you at all times here on the channel. So make sure that you keep up with us. Until next time, everybody, thank you very much to everybody who has been hanging out with us. We'll see you in the next stream. Have a great rest of your week. And most importantly, fight on.
Game.